So you can see that now. So this is the safeguarding procedures. Now, I did try to email you guys a copy of the current policy we have. We have just in the process now of updating it. What we're going to share with you today is the new version, which I cannot physically send you at this moment in time until it's been ratified, because one or two things need rewording, changing slightly, but it's going to give you an idea. So I did email the policy out to all those emails we had who had registered this morning. However, some bounced. If you need to get a copy of the policy, you can easily go on now to the NEC website, go onto the Family Ministries page, and download the policy from there. The safeguarding policy is on there. Or if you really stuck, go onto the BUC one, and the same thing there, the policy is there. So you can download it, but however, the one we will be getting in the next few weeks will be updated. Then that will also help us, right? So I'm assuming some of you, I think I know your faces. So some of you may be new to this. So those who have had a little bit more experience, as we go through and as we discuss together, we want you to feel you can participate. Yeah. You notice the logo has changed now as well, promoting a safer Seventh-day Adventist church. This is the ethos that we want to create as we look at the safeguarding within the church. I appreciate sometimes as well, as we go through some of the issues of safeguarding, sometimes people in their own family situations, personally or in family, have experienced issues. We don't want anybody to leave this platform today feeling like, you know, overwhelmed. And there is a counselling service that we offer as a church. The number is on the screen. Hopefully you will take a note of that number, the 07539 211 442. And that line is available to ring, to leave your name, details, and someone gets back to you within 24 hours. And any counselling issue, it's good that the church has that. As safeguarding officers, it's good you have the poster. The posters have been sent out to the church. Please email me if for some reason your churches don't have a poster. And we would like to, you know, be able to give you that. This is also something which people need, whether somebody has a safeguarding issue, whether they're a perpetrator or a victim, the counselling service is there to support, and in all situations. So it's always good that you have that. So I always put that number up there, and we can get that poster to you if you haven't already got it in your local churches.
Just a quick go through some housekeeping. We recognise the fact that, you know, it's a Sunday morning, everyone normally gets a little bit later. So feel free to, you know, grab your drinks or any snacks as you are listening in. Obviously, at some point you might need to nip out to use the bathroom, not a problem. But we will have an actual break halfway through. And also just to mention that we will be giving everybody, for those who would like to have the assessment test, the opportunity to take it. But we do ask for you to have that returned to us within the 2 weeks, which is beneficial to you because everything will be still fresh in your mind. So for those who need that test, some people sometimes just come on these courses as a refresher, which is fine to do. But for some people, it's been 2 years, and so they need to have that certificate. So within 2 weeks, that'd be brilliant. And we're just going to quickly go through here. We'll see that we're going to spend a lot of time talking about the policy, going through some definitions. There is a group exercise, and you'll be put into breakout rooms to complete that. The key area is number 5, is how do you respond to an allegation, or somebody comes up to you and says they've been abused. Again, another exercise, and then we'll be hopefully finishing off with any questions and answers.
I can see some messages have coming through. People are still trying to get in. Bethany, can you just confirm, have we managed to sort out this issue with raising the level?
So unfortunately, the NEC account only has the capacity for 100, but I sent a message if you can see.
Okay. Right. Okay. I can still see quite a number of people don't have the cameras on. If I may just ask something, if some of you did the training last year, because I know someone did ring me this morning, you don't necessarily need to be on here. I would like to give the opportunity for those who are trying to get in to come in, since we are on 100. So consider that if you do really need to be here today. And obviously what we will do by 11, we will see those. We really do need to see some faces. You know, it may be a situation we have to consider if we don't get any contact from you. So I can see there's quite a number with the cameras off. So apart from of course, our trainers, of course, you know, that's okay. But you know, we do need to look at that. So it's something for most of it. I didn't realize our capacity was 100. I thought we had a bit more, but never mind. That is just a shame. So welcome to those who managed to make it on. So basically, what the safeguarding is about to do is, at the end of this session, we want you to be more familiar with the policy. And as I say, we're going to go for the newer aspect of the policy, more aware of protection and safeguarding issues, and also able to identify good working practices. And something I often say with our policy document, we have a very good policy document. We have worked very tirelessly to improve it, based upon experience and things what have happened. And a lot of people outside bodies who are working with us think the policy is very good, but the policy is only as good as it is used. Does that make sense? So it's about us looking at our own individual church settings and, you know, being effective in how we use it. But we want you to be able to identify as well good working practices and able to know what actions to take if you have any concerns. And we've shown that video initially, which highlighted some things. And most important thing, ensure that church is a safe place. That's what we want. We want our churches to be safe and people to feel protected, and create those environments, not only that people feel protected, but that those who probably would want to do harm or are coming to church for different reasons, maybe make them feel more uncomfortable and don't feel that this is church is an easy prey. That's what, if that makes sense. You know, we have to protect those which are within our midst. That's what God's called us to do. And there's a couple of texts as well. Proverbs 31, 8-9, it says, open your mouth for the mute, for the rights of all who are destitute. Open your mouth, judge righteously, defend the rights of the poor and the needy. God calls us to do that. And that is so important here. Okay, so what the policy is basically trying to do is to help us reduce those incidences of abuse and the duty of care or safety procedures by providing best practice. And that's what it's kind of trying to say. It's about giving the best practice. And it's also a written policy designed to protect both children and adults. Now, we are currently working on a separate adult one. We're going to separate them, but at the moment, even the new one you will get, it is looking at both children and adults within the actual policy. So it's actually going through those things. And one thing we do suggest, I mean, I don't think it's always happening. I'm not saying it's not happening in your church. I hope it is. When we have our church board meetings, it is also good to have this as an item of the agenda with the safeguarding officer, to take time as board members to go through at least the key principles of the policy. So we are familiar with, because each of your churches is different. There may be some churches you have a load of children. There may be some churches you don't. So you've got to look at your church setting and say, what are the needs of our church and how can we help this policy to work? Are we as leaders, because each of you as board members are leaders of the church, all the officers are leaders, what we call you responsible people in safeguarding, you have to ensure that for your particular setting, does this make sense? This policy is working for you. So obviously the new policy is being done, and we are actually going to point some things out of it. It's pretty much similar to what we've got here, what you've got in the old one, but we've expanded a lot of areas. Now we'll explain a little bit more as we start to go along.
I'm not sure if you're able to actually access the policy, but does anybody know how many statements there are in our actual current policy? Does anybody actually know? Anybody?
No.
No, I don't know.
Okay. Okay, let me just.
We're going to stop the policy. It's right at the very beginning, and it's got a policy statement, and there's actually
7.
6, 7, 8 now, isn't it?
And that's nine. Yeah.
What is that?
Right.
The objectives?
That is the objective, where it says on page 2, it's the
1, 2,
actual
3,
policy
4.
statement.
1, 2,
Yeah.
3, 4. I think there's 4 there, isn't there?
I think it's
So
7.
there's from A in your policy that you've got from A to G. From
It's
A to
7.
G, there's different statements, and I'm just going to put the PowerPoint back on. And you can see here, this is one of the statements. It says in affirming, and that's A. This is the very first statement in the policy. 7 altogether. In affirming the dignity and worth of each human being, and we will not condone neglect, bullying, or any form of physical, sexual, emotional, or spiritual abuse of any individual, whether in the church or in the community. And it's worthwhile just noting, it's not just about the church, it's about the community that the church is in. So if you're a church member going home from church, you may see something happening to a child or a vulnerable adult right there next to the church. You have a duty of care to actually report that incident. So there are 7 statements, but the new policy, I'm just going to go to that. The new policy has got a new one. This is now makes 8 statements. So this is the new statement in the policy. And it says the church will respect differences in gender, sexual orientation, culture, race, ethnicity, disability, and religious belief systems, and appreciate that all individuals are of value to the community of faith. And I think this is a very important statement. And basically what it's trying to basically say is that you don't have to necessarily agree with a person's life choices. As you know, the world in which we're living, especially with anything seems to go at the moment, you don't have to agree. But what it's trying to say is that we should have a respect and value each person. And the fact is, God says we have to love everybody. The song says, doesn't it? Love everybody if you want to see Jesus. So love people, but you don't have to agree with their life choices and their way of living. So I hope that's clear.
And what it's also sort of, instead of saying there, what it's also stressing the importance that everybody needs to feel safe. And we have to create those environments. And as people come into church, and, you know, God will reveal to them, and the various, if they decide to make a full decision, God will work through them through his Holy Spirit. But we initially need to be welcoming to everybody and make sure that everybody is feeling safe and respected. And, you know, that is so important there. That is so important. Okay, so the question is often asked, what is safeguarding? What is safeguarding? What actually is actual safeguarding? As it says, safeguarding covers specific actions we take to protect both children and vulnerable adults who are at risk. And sometimes that protection means that we may need to involve even some work with some authorities outside. One of the things we were saying, I've talked to my other safeguarding counterpart in the SEC, Sister Judy, the other night, and one of the things we were saying is it's important that as churches we know who the local agencies are in our area and have contacts, because if sometimes things happen, there are sometimes things are so severe you need to involve those agencies. It's also important people know who the safeguarding people are in church, what are the procedures. You know, an example we put up there, display posters with child-friendly wording, advertise the name and telephone number of a recognized independent national organization that individuals can contact, like the Child Line, like the NSPCC. It's important that people know where they can go if they have a concern. So your counseling posters, your other bodies, you know, things which would be there to help people if they need it. All of those things need to be clearly displayed in your churches.
So it says here, what is safeguarding? It says safeguarding is proactive, which means we take the necessary steps to protect children and young people before anything happens. And I think it's important when we say before, what are we referring to? Anybody know? We're talking about risk assessments. Because that's what it's about, isn't it? Before you take your pathfinders on a camping trip, or before you take young people out, or wherever you're going, you have to carry out a risk assessment. That is being proactive. So the idea is you are making sure that you are going to avoid unnecessary harm, because you would have already have spotted some of the dangers, and you would have put perhaps extra staff in place to avoid any sort of thing happening. And I think it's also worth mentioning, when you carry out a risk assessment before an event, it's also a good idea to carry out a risk assessment at the end of an event. Would anybody just like to just mention as to why that's important? Has anybody done a risk assessment at the end of an event?
No.
Just to see where,
I suppose.
sorry, to see like before you do an activity, make sure that it is safe environment one, or nothing that will harm either physically or mentally affect that gathering or event. Then after the event, see where you can improve, or if there's anything that could have caused danger to the settings. So yeah.
You've summed that up very well. I can see a few hands, and help us, Beth, if I'm missing people. Nina and is it Kaku?
Yeah, I was just going to say that it's the same thing I was going to say with Sister Nikisha, because what we've done when we do a post-risk assessment review is that we've actually improved on the pre-risk assessment, because we've seen places that we could have done better, or if there were some events that didn't go down well, especially, so let's give an example. If you were doing a risk assessment for the children's ministry, just an example, and you were looking at your exit points in the church, if there were any events, and then an event does happen, how did you evacuate children? How were parents informed, and things like that? Most times it doesn't go well. You want to do a post-risk assessment to be sure that you're doing it better next time.
That's right.
Yes,
Thank you very much. Right.
And thank you very much for that.
Yeah, Kweko, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Kweko, yes, I can hear you now. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, okay. So I raised my hand in response to the earlier question about being proactive and preventative. And that is where I was going to say that you must know your congregation. For me, our congregation is predominantly Ghanaian who've migrated from other areas of the world, and their appreciation of safeguarding and the expectations of parents in particular are quite not what we would expect. So what we do is that we organize periodic safeguarding in terms of protecting children, in terms of how to conduct themselves, even for the counselors and the teachers and things. So being proactive is to anticipate that their knowledge base would not be, what would they expect because of their upbringing, and then offer that before anything happens. Because when something happens, it's quite difficult to manage. So we are more proactive and preventative that way. Thank you.
No, thank you. That's a very good point. And then we had Mark, and I think I saw somebody named Dawn. Make your points as brief as possible, please. Mark, Elder Mark.
Good morning, John. Good morning, good morning, both of you. And also the idea of having a reflective practice is also important. That after something happens, it's good to review, as mentioned, the importance, what went well, what didn't go well. And there's always room for improvement in everything anyway, at the end of the day. However, safeguarding can also be an issue after you do a thorough risk assessment. Sometimes things can still happen. So it's also about what do you do in the event that after you had a risk assessment, are you willing or are you able to conduct the whole safeguarding procedures? Because sometimes you may do a risk assessment and that part's done, but there's maybe a falling down when we have to go through the whole of that difficult procedure afterwards. So it's important that we risk assess definitely, but also follow the whole process through.
Yes,
definitely.
I think that is important. Is it Elrose now next?
Yes,
Elrose.
yes, thank you. I just wanted to say that the nature of the church is, good morning, everybody. The nature of the church is one where everybody is included. And what I've seen happen at my church, Ladywood, before is that persons of unsound mind sometimes come into church. And whereas you don't want to preclude them from the service and whatever, they can be quite disruptive, become quite, combative. And we've had instances where our elders had to get up and usher them out safely. So these are things that we have to risk assess in terms of how do you keep the children and also adults safe in instances like this.
Yeah, and I think, as you say, it's about being proactive, isn't it? I also would say, as a bit of encouragement to all of you, with safeguarding issues, if any authorities have to get in to look at different things from what you just mentioned, but serious issues, we aren't going to get condemned for not always doing everything right. What the issue is, they want to know that we've got a policy, that we have got things in place, and even if there've been errors, we're learning from that and building on that. And it's all about progression. That's the thing, because it's not about hiding our faces from it. It's about kind of, working, if that makes sense. And something I think I needed to say at the outset, really, with this policy now, because there are some very serious things happening, and we're going to hear about some things, maybe even other parts of our institution, which have been happening. So we are tightening up. We really need to make sure that any officer serving is not only has some training from maybe the safeguarding lead, as you've been trained to, those of you leads to give it into your churches, but has some training before they serve office and has their DBS done. That is something which is going to happen. And we're going to implement. And some DBS training is being offered anyway on the 22nd. But yes, Donovan, you want to move to this one then now? Yeah.
Yes, if I just go back to this.
I appreciate we can't answer everybody, but we're doing our best. I did see a message come up about training, because we know we unfortunately we're limited for 100. We didn't realize that till this morning. But other training is happening. This is just one big one. As area directors, we're going into different areas. And with the exception to next week, because we've done this one today, as we go around to the areas, we will be doing some safeguarding training on the Sunday, so announcements will be made of that. So people won't miss out. It's just they've missed this one today. That's it. Okay. So this one is we've said that it's proactive. We're now looking at what is abuse, what actually is abuse. And as it says here, abuse of any type occurs when someone has power over the other and uses that power to harm. Now, harm doesn't just mean physically beating someone up. As I think you can harm somebody by oppressing them or controlling them mentally or emotionally. There's so many different ways, but anything that is exerting power and coercing somebody in something, that is abuse, the power to harm, whether it be emotional, even spiritual, or physical. That is what abuse actually is.
And we've got here, it says, what is harm? And again, this can be found, these definitions at the front of the document at present on page 2. So harm means the ill treatment or the impairment of health and development. And we have something called significant harm, which is a threshold that justifies compulsory intervention in family life in the best interest of the children and is based on comparing the child's health and development to that which could be reasonably expected of a child of similar age. And so research has been done and developmental milestones have been documented. And so they know, for example, a child who is aged between 3 and 4 should be doing various things. Every child at every age should be achieving certain milestones. And a child of 3 and 4 should have the ability to be able to share a sentence with more than 3 words. And if a child is not doing that, that means it has been, seriously affected through some sort of neglect or abuse of some form or the other. But bearing in mind that every single child does develop at their own pace. So it is difficult to, say that every child should be able to do each thing. But on the whole, these developmental milestones have proved that this is what they use as a marker to know that this child is in serious harm and the child has to be removed. So for example, a child is not even able to walk as they should be walking or manipulating certain objects as they should be. And that's when a child is removed from the family home. Can I just also say, do excuse me, I am sort of just coming through a cold, so I may sound a little bit nasal. So I do apologize.
Okay, what is a child? Now, believe it or not, the term child or young person relates to anyone under the age of 18. So some of those big young adult type people, and I know they want to be adults probably sometimes at 12 these days, but certainly our teenagers, yes, we may look at them and think, okay, they're adults and they want to be adults. But if they're, 18, they are obviously still children. And of course, that is extended a little bit because sometimes people have special needs or disability, and that can be even taken up to age 25. So the vulnerability depends on the circumstances. So, that is just something we need to bear in mind. And I think it is very important. I am always conscious of the fact, just come into office and we had a meeting organized with some young people, and some of the stuff they shared with us, and particularly the young ladies, they didn't feel safe in church. And these were people they'd grown up with. They would see them as like their aunties and uncles, or particularly uncles, and being approached in a very inappropriate way, wanting men approaching them for wanting private meetings, getting their phone numbers, stressing them out really. And our young people shouldn't feel like that. They should feel safe, and we have to kind of understand that. Now, I'm just looking through the screen and I can see still a number of cameras are off.
We haven't got their churches in
And
as
we
well.
haven't got the churches here. So we really do need you to put those cameras on, and we are going to kind of now, I think, get to a deadline. So those who haven't, we're going to just try, and I'm going to ask Bethany if you could just email those people who haven't now. I'm going to have to start calling names soon, but I'm trying to avoid doing that, so I can see those cameras are there. That we know people are physically with us. That's the problem now. So otherwise we may have to look. There are a lot of people wanting to get in, and we want to, you were in, want you to make the best use out of this. So can you sort of monitor that for us, Bethany, please? Thank you. Okay.
So who is an adult at risk? There are, it's on page 3 and page 49 of our current document, and it's a person aged 18 or over who is unable to safeguard their own well-being, their property, their rights, or other interests. A person who is affected by disability, mental disorder, illness, or physical or mental infirmity. And if I can just add here that just because a person has a disability doesn't necessarily mean that they are at risk. We shouldn't just automatically assume that they are an adult at risk. And also it's worth, I'm sure we all are aware, that a person can be at risk and have a disability but show no outward signs. So just by looking at the person, you will not be able to tell that that person is a person who is at risk. And then it says here, thirdly, a person engaging or likely to engage in conduct which causes or is likely to cause self-harm. And a person may be suffering from a bereavement or struggling with the impact of past abuse or trauma. And I think it's worth mentioning those in the family life department or those in community services or somebody who is maybe a deaconess or deacon, you may be able, what I'm basically saying is, if a person is really not coping well with the death of a loved one, sometimes they are not quite rational. Sometimes they're not looking after themselves, because they are grieving, they're stressed, they're emotionally distraught, they're not taking care of themselves. They are very vulnerable, and some people unfortunately take advantage of people in such positions. So you need to be, as a church, there to support people who are perhaps struggling in some way because they are in a place where they could be seriously exploited, which is something that we don't want to happen within our churches.
Right, I'm just checking. Oh, okay. Yeah. Because we said page 3, it is on page 3 in the new policy, but page 49 is a little different now. That actually has the appendix in, which is a great good. It's got a list of things, so we just need you to check the page numbers because we still try to compare. Yeah, we still try to compare with the new one. The one you're looking at is fine, but the new one is a little different. But we're just trying to make the comparisons as we go along. Okay, so. Okay.
Pastor, can I just say something?
Yes.
I think we've got parents on here, single parents. I'm a single parent, and I've got my children and grandchildren here today, and it's quite difficult to have my camera on all the time. So
yes, that's fair enough.
There are times that I'll come off because I have to do what I need to do.
The main thing is not necessarily to have it on all the time, but so long as we've seen you and
okay.
Because what it is, we've had a few things where people have sat on these Zooms, they're not really engaged. And it is important. I mean, if I appreciate if some of you are at work, but then the question is, if people are at work, is it a good time to be on this? Because it's hard to be at work and be on this.
For me, Pastor, it's just that I've got the foster
that's
kids.
Different.
I've got to be off and on. Yeah.
That
Okay.
is okay. So,
But
so
I
we have
think-
seen you. So we
Thank
we
you.
know you now. That's
Bethany
fine,
is,
that's
is
fine.
marking those who
She
have.
is.
I know Bethany's been looking
Yeah.
at the chat and people have made comments in the chat, but you've put your camera on, you
Yeah,
can turn it
yeah,
off.
yeah, that's
But
fine.
when it's not been on, I mean, I've noticed some people have not even put their churches into their,
Mm.
so there's
Yeah.
no response at all.
So
There's
that
a
is a
name with no
difficulty.
actual response.
That
There's
is a
no name,
difficulty.
there's no
Yeah.
church. They're
Yeah.
not telling us
Yeah.
their church.
Yeah.
And so we just need to check that they are, this is such important information. We have to make sure that people are, like Pastor said, engaging with us, engaging with what we're talking about.
And it is
here.
challenging when we have such a big number, but as I said, we are going to be having some local area ones as well. But I do appreciate all of those which have taken time today. Anyway, gentlemen, let's move to the next one now. So,
Very quick question.
any quick questions as we move on now, because this is the time we, yeah, please.
It's not a question, but I'm just saying how you've been calling for people to show their cameras or put their church name and they haven't done it. I mean, how do we prove that those people are actually one of us? They could be anybody. They could be a perpetrator who has come to see what we are learning to keep them out of the church. So please, people need to do something. They need to either put the church name or at least show their face once and then go off, because it's not right that they have not responded to your request. We are trying to
It needs to
learn
be on
about
the
how to keep the
profile.
children safe.
It doesn't want, I don't want it, we don't need it in the chat, we need it on the
We
profile
need it on.
page. On that front page.
So Bethany, now I'm you exactly right, sister, what you're saying. Bethany, now are you being able to contact everybody, because I can see there's one or two.
Yeah, I'm
Gail.
sending everybody messages on how to do it. The people that I can see haven't put their names, so if everybody can just check the chat for instructions, and they should be able to do that.
I can see. Sorry.
Excuse me. My name is.
Can I do mine later?
Who's speaking now? Sorry.
It's Charity here. Can I?
Oh, Charity, we did see you earlier on, didn't we? That's fine.
Yeah, can I do mine later after fact? When I've got to where I am, I'm on the motorway.
No worries. That's okay, Charity. We did see you. It's okay. We did speak with you, but I'm on about those. Sometimes we haven't got the cameras on now, and we do have one or two. There's somebody named Dahin Vernon, Gail, Petra. I mean, have we guys responded? Do we know you're here?
I'm here. I'm here. Sorry.
Okay, good.
I'm from the
good.
President
That's
Assembly
fine.
Adventist Church. I'm right here
Fine.
listening.
Glad we've acknowledged you now. We just want to be sure.
I haven't got my camera on, but I'm from Salford SDA Church.
Okay, and your name
I don't know
is?
whether my name is showing. Onyi, I'm trying to do it. My phone is just telling me you can't do anything.
Yeah.
My name is Onyi Onyinyechi, Salford SDA Church.
Okay.
Oh, there.
Got you. Now we have got you, Oni. That's okay. We'll make a note of that.
Thank you.
As I said, but Beverly will liaise with you as well. We don't want to have to throw people out, but eventually we might do. But that's okay. Anyway, Dalton, I see your hand up, and I see Dawn, and I think Christine. Did you speak before?
Yes, I've been trying to. Thank you.
Yes.
My name is on the profile, but I'm not.
Yes, I can see you.
familiar
Don't
with,
worry. It's okay.
I'm from Winston
We've
Green
seen you
anyway.
now.
I did put it in the chat.
We've seen you now. That's fine. Dalton, yes. You had your hand up. I can't hear you. Sorry, you on mute. Sorry, you need to just click the red thing so to take yourself off mute.
Yes, I was saying that.
I
was saying that my name is there. I'm off the. My video is on, so I'm sure you've seen me. I don't know.
We've seen you now. That's fine. Yes.
Yeah, and
which church are you from anyway? Which church are you from?
Bilston Seventh-day Adventist Church.
Welcome.
And I did type it in the chat as well. I did email.
That's fine. Yeah. Yes, I'm getting some messages come up, so that is fine. That is okay.
And I have to be in and out as well, because I'm working tonight, so I've got to be in and out doing things, preparing for work later.
Yeah, understandable. So right, there was somebody else had their hand up. Is it Nikisha?
It was in regard to what we are talking about before. You asked if there's any question. You have mentioned where you said in some congregation where like young people feel a bit like people asking inappropriate way of thing, like similar to within the school system where they would say a Caucasian child will dress a particular way compared to an ethnic background child, and they will think that the child is more mature, but they have signs up. Is it a way where we could have some of these safeguarding, just the main things put on a flyer or a poster where it can be seen to say, here we safeguard, just a little, because things are changing, as you rightfully say earlier. So to make it be more visible when someone come, whether they can read yes or no, but just to make it be shown where children know, because a lot of people go into churches, different Adventist church, they don't know about if they're safeguard. They only know if they have outside background in safeguarding. They're not aware that there is somewhere they can go to or anything. But within school settings or public settings, they know that if something happened, I go to my teacher. If something happened, I call the police. So is it any poster thing that we could get to put up?
Yeah.
That's just
yeah, it's a good question. I'm so glad you asked that, Nikisha. We do have some standard sort of things now we will send out to those who want them to safeguarded leads, but really we leave it to the churches to make up their own things for their setting. However, and you were correct, there is a lot more encouragement now given for churches to do something like this, because it would probably be an area, I'm not saying everywhere, but I think you're probably right. We have failed in the past, and this is what we're changing now. And there is a lot of help, even for 3180 who I've registered the converts with, a lot of example of flyers, so you can design things. If you're really struggling, come and talk to us at the NEC as well, and let us start working together to help you, because it's important that you have, a lot of people have some good IT people in church. So from the templates we give you, you can start designing and working. Even from the new policy document, there are things you'll see in that as it comes out over the next few weeks. It should be ratified hopefully this Wednesday. We're just tweaking a few wording and things at the moment, but once that's done, we will send you all of that. And you know, you need to begin to start, and we'll start on our websites to put different things on, or examples of stuff. And if you need some support, let's talk about it, because we have contacts with some good printers as well, which can help you. So just let's have a conversation. But the thing is, as you rightly say, we need to have more of those documents showing in our churches. That is so crucial. And even sometimes the pictures where possible of some of the officers or the key people. That really does help, because that's where we want to get to, really.
Can you add, because someone is asking if it's the old policy you have, it is the old one and you're renewing it. So can you repeat what you have repeated in the beginning? Because a lot of people missed it. Because they're asking questions in the chat.
Asking the questions. Thank you. Just to explain, the policy, we have a new policy we are working with from this January, but there are some updates being done. So unfortunately, I'm not allowed at this moment to distribute that in case it gets sent out because of the tweaks. So what we've done, we put the old policy up. We'll ask you to access that. But then what we're going to do, once the new policy is ratified with the policy committee, which is at the BUC, we will send it out to you. And we are actually highlighting some points. The bulk of it is the same, but there's some specific points we're trying to highlight in this training that you will be able to take. And there's a little summary sheet you're going to get when you get the new policy with all the changes. So you'll know exactly where to go to look at where the changes are. So all that is being worked as we speak. It was just unfortunately we couldn't have it all ready for today. So we're just doing the best we can here, but you will do it. Somebody is sent a message.
Right, that's fine. Don't worry.
That's fine. Okay. Yeah. Takondwa, is it? I might be saying your name wrong.
That's fine. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Before I say a question is at one of the churches I was attending, we had an incident. One of the person was abusing children where he was coming from. So he came to our church. We didn't know. Very good with children, very knowledgeable in church, very, very active. We didn't know. And he was taking classes for children. Then the incident came and we were, the church contacted parents that has your children been involved in anything or witnessed anything. We didn't know anything. We just got this question from the church. So there was no updates after that, or we find out from other sources that this person was in prison. And we were worried that this person was abused where he's coming from. We didn't know anything. And he was also, he was abusing children, and he was working with the children again when he came to our church. And we're being contacted if anything has happened with your children or the parents. So is there any way the church can provide this information to the parents or to be aware of, not just like to be left in the dark? Because it happens many churches.
Yeah. I do thank you for your comments. Obviously, on this platform, I don't want to probably start the conversation to go in a direct discussion for that individual situation. It may be good if we have a private chat about that process. But what I would say probably generally, and this is very important, you know, sometimes I know we are a caring community as a church, and that is good. There's nothing necessarily inherently wrong with this, but we have to be practical. And that's one of the things we said at the very well, I'm trying to say it for those of you who may have missed it, I'll repeat it again. When somebody comes to church, even for the first time, one, we shouldn't be that quick to always put them in positions of responsibility. That's just a general guide. It's very important, and we are now saying from here on in, and this is something we're going to get out from the whole conference, the whole union is going to be pushing this, particularly as we get this new policy now. No one should be serving in a department if they haven't been through the training we're doing now, or of course your safeguarding leads will be doing the training individually, that's fine. Without safeguarding training or DBS checks. And that has to be done from the church perspective, not from their work perspective. Our DBS checks are enhanced checks, and it's important that they have those. And all of those things now need to happen. So the DBS check is not just for safeguarding. It's not just for those issues. It could even check with somebody if they was honest, you know, if they've got in the treasury. So there's a lot of, we'll say a little bit more about that later, but it's very important we have some procedures, and that's what we're saying there. I can see a load of hands. Bethany, you're gonna have to help me use first. I don't know.
I can see Beatrice.
Beatrice, okay. Beatrice, yes.
It's just a very quick. I was just going to say that, you know, here in the United Kingdom, or maybe even the whole of Europe, why don't we use the system of a person coming with a letter from their church, signed by their pastor, church pastor, just to introduce them when they visit or when they're coming to stay longer? I mean, in Africa, that's what happens, because that way, you know, the person has already been verified by their own pastor when they visit. What my sister said there is true. Here, people just move around and they'll just turn up, and then they'll show that enthusiasm, you know, the knowledge of the Bible, participating in, and without knowing, you're placing them in positions without realizing they're actually they could be an abuser. So I don't know why they wouldn't, you know, from the NEC point of view, trying to introduce that letter. A person comes with a letter verified by their own church pastor or elders or anything like that. Thank you, Pastor.
Yeah, I mean, all of those things are good, and I take your point, but we do have a system for checking, and part of the system is through the process we've just mentioned as well. And also, if people are going to have membership transfer, there should be checks made. So it's possible sometimes in our enthusiasm to have somebody do something in church, we make the mistake of bringing them in too soon because we're short of something being filled. But that is a dangerous way. That's what we're saying. That is not really good practice. And there has to be a proper process. And if we was following even some of the process, and all what you've said there, sister, is also good. but if we was following the processes which are already in place properly, it would avoid some of these things. Elder Becky, I can see your hand up as well. Sorry, good to see you, Elder Becky, as well.
Good morning, both. Yeah, thank you. Just as a thought, maybe a suggestion, maybe for the future, probably to be resource intensive. So I'm thinking at work, everyone has to do a safeguarding training. So I'm taking into account your point that people, they need to have done the training before they can serve in any position. And the only way to do that is for all members to go through the training. So whether that's something that could be considered in that way.
Yep. Thank you, Elder Becky. And you were correct. And that's why, you know, those of you particularly safeguarding leads now on this training, we may need to have some other meetings with you as well, but you need to now be delivering it to the church, and each church needs to do its, you know, and what Elder Becky said is so crucial. It's about the church being involved. That is what makes it safe. And that's what really needs to happen. I can see there are quite a few hands, so we need to just be. Is it Dawn? Okay.
Oh, good morning. Oh, I've managed to get my. Let me just see if my camera will come off now. My camera won't come off for some reason, and now I've got my mic off. I just wanted to just quickly raise it's a difficult one in terms of like the DBSs, because am I right? Is it my understanding that they are renewed every 3 years, which seems quite a long period? And what do you do in instances where you might have people in not in post, but some do visit as well, or do other aspects of the work? It's really difficult. And do you recommend that we have, say, young people in post as well? What's the church stance on that?
Okay. Okay, yeah. So
Sorry, I've given you a few things.
No, it's okay. There are a number of things there. It is good, obviously, to involve our youth and get them trained up, but one has to, for example, if you was having a young person, you wouldn't let them be working on their own. You'd have somebody there with them. And there's all of that. And it's good to have regular updates. And it's also good for the person who's DBS, she can get people updated. Even if you have volunteers, if they're going to come and help you on a regular basis, they still need to be DBS. It doesn't just apply to church members. So it's a general thing. But as we move on in the policy, some of this will be discussed, won't it? We're going to go through this. So we'll move on, because I'm looking at the time now. It's about 11. So if we can move on, Delavan, and then what we'll do, we'll come back to hold some of your questions, and some of that will be answered a little bit more clearly, Dawn. So thank you for raising that one. Yeah. So Delavan, if you could just quickly move on to this then now.
Okay, so we'll go to this. We'll just go to this next slide.
It should move. Is it moving now?
Yeah. Okay. Oops.
So categories reviews. Yeah.
Yeah. So in the old policy, this was on page appendix 15 and page 38. In the new policy, it's actually been moved right to from pages 4 to 6. So what we're going to be doing in a short while is we're going to be putting you into some breakout rooms. We've got 10 breakout rooms that we're going to be allocating you to. And there's 2 things we need you to do when you're in that room. And right now, we need you to just take a photo of this screen, because this is going to be helpful for when you're in the room. So we need you to write down a definition of your abuse. We're going to be telling you what your abuse is in a little while, but we need you to do 2 things. Write down the definition of your abuse, and then secondly, we want you to write down some indicators of the abuse that you would expect to see. What is an indicator of that particular abuse? So we're going to just give you a little example.
Give you some time to do that.
It's going to come back up.
Okay.
So what is abuse? Abuse using social media. So it says there, so it's talking about, this is an example then. So Online abuse is any type of abuse that happens on the web, whether through social networks, playing online games, or using mobile phones. And children and young people may experience cyberbullying, grooming, sexual abuse, sexual exploitation, or emotional abuse. So that's the definition of the abuse. This is taken from our policy. And what are the indicators that a person is suffering from social media abuse? And the indicators: preoccupation with mobile phones, angry, depressed, frustrated, they appear jumpy or nervous when using their mobile, computer, or tablet, a sudden loss of friends, lack of concentration, self-harming, having difficulty sleeping, or loss of appetite. So you can see there just bullet points as to some of the indicators. So that's just an example of showing you what we're expecting you to be able to do in your group. So what everybody needs to do now is take a photo of this page. So when you are allocated to your room, if you are in room 1, you will need to look at physical abuse. Room 2, you will need to work on emotional abuse. So can everyone, in fact, it's 12 rooms, tell a lie. There's
We're
12
going to have
rooms.
12.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, Bethany, if we could get 12 rooms set up. Now,
Yeah.
what I need before we do, as we get the room set up, I need a leader for each of the groups to lead the discussion, you know, just to manage it. So we need 12 people now, don't we? Okay, so Elder Becky, would you be prepared to do one of the groups for us, please?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay. So that's one. So if you can make a note, Bethany, Elder Becky, I'm just looking at other people we may know who could take one, unless you want to volunteer. Oh, I saw Elder Mark Palmer. Could you take a group?
Mark?
Yeah. So long as the leaders of the group is taking a picture, that should be okay, because some people don't know how to take the photo. So yes, that's why I want some leaders. So we have to get some volunteers as well. Elder Mark, are you still with us?
And we've got our sister as well. That's sister.
I'll take a group, Pastor.
Right, and you're it's Sister Nakisha. So can you take the we need to assign you to groups. So if Elder Becky, you can have the physical abuse.
If those people can put that, raise their hands.
Raise the hand who can take a group.
Then it's easy to identify.
So Elder Becky takes the physical abuse.
Sorry, John, I'm back. Sorry,
Right.
No, just
Elder Mark. No, Elder Mark.
I'm back
will you
now.
take
I was frozen.
abuse? Number 2. Okay.
Yes, sure, no problem.
Nakisha, will you take sexual abuse?
Okay, yes.
We need somebody for 4, neglect. Who would take that one?
I've raised my hands as Fisana from Hull.
Oh, Kazana, yes, from Hull. Yes, sorry. I saw somebody. Yeah. Okay, so you take that one. And then we need somebody for the spiritual abuse.
Pastor, can you please repeat the names you've already said?
Okay, yeah.
I'm going to once you've assigned those.
So Elder Becky's taking physical abuse. Elder Mark's taking emotional. Sister Nakisha was taking sexual. Oh shit, who was from Hull again? What's your name now?
I'm taking
Fasani.
neglect. Yeah.
Neglect. Fasani's taking neglect. Who's taking spiritual abuse?
I will.
That's Elrose Lindsay from Ladywood. She's taking spiritual abuse.
Yeah.
You got that, Bethany, yeah? And then financial abuse.
I don't mind taking that.
Who is Dawn. So Dawn Blake, she's taking financial abuse. Number 7 is modern slavery. Is Beatrice got a hand up? Are you taking modern slavery, Beatrice? Sorry, that's just loads of hands here.
I don't mind doing modern slavery.
Okay.
Grace Charles.
Grace, Grace Charles, yes.
Yeah.
So Grace Charles is doing modern slavery, Becky. I mean, sorry, Bethany. Radicalization, number 8.
I don't mind doing that, Pastor.
Who is Marcus. Thank you so much, Marcus. Marcus is taking radicalization number 8. And number 9, child trafficking. Anybody for that one? No. Okay.
I don't mind taking that.
Who is I don't sorry, I can't see who
it's Carolyn from Mansfield Woodhouse.
Caroline. Oh, so much. Thank you, Caroline. Caroline's going to take child trafficking number 9 from Mansfield Woodhouse. Child sexual exploitation number 10.
Can I just say, you know, your number 10, child sexual exploitation, that's strongly linked with criminal exploitation as well. I just wondered why that one wasn't, criminal exploitation isn't on there.
There is.
Just a note.
Yeah. Yes.
So much
there isn't always the space. Yeah. So child exploitation. Who wants to take that one?
Hi, Dacia will take it from Dudley Church.
Dacia from Dudley Church will take that one. Okay. The last 2 now, female genital mutilation, number 11. No one's volunteering for that.
I'll take that one.
Okay.
Ruth, is that? Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Nina. It's Ruth, is it? Sorry, Ruth. Yes. Okay, Ruth. Ruth Thompson. Yes. Hi, Ruth. Yes.
Hi there.
You're taking that one.
Yeah.
And the last one was organizational abuse.
I can take it if you want.
That is Mildred. Oh, yes, Mildred. Yes, please. Mildred's going to take that one. Organizational abuse number 12. So hopefully you've got all that, Bethany. We can start putting people into the groups.
There's just one more thing to do.
Okay.
Before you go to your groups, you just need to make sure you scribe the room number you're in, and we just need that clear definition and indicators, just a few bullet points, okay? I'm going to ask you to share. We're going to just take one room at a time, and we're going to ask you to be really concise. If you could just be really concise, and we just need you to basically, I'm going to start with room 1 and work my way all the way through the rooms. So you'll just need to say a definition, a very concise definition of your abuse, and then what are the indicators that will inform you as to that particular person suffering from that particular abuse. So we're asking you to be very concise and very brief so we can get through. So we're going to ask room 1, which was physical abuse. Can we just have, can you raise your hand up, just so it brings you to the front, as it were. You can't see.
So Sister Barbara is feedbacking for us, giving feedback for room 1.
Sister Barbara.
So over to you, Sister Barbara.
Yes, hello everybody. So we group 1, physical abuse. We determined that physical abuse in definition is deliberate or intentional bodily harm or injury to a child or adult. And these possible indicators, sometimes they can be single, or sometimes it can be a multiple symptoms. You can see multiple symptoms. Some of these symptoms included finger marks, poisoning, shaking, choking. Physical abuse can also include non-consensual sexual abuse. And some of these signs are bruises in unusual places, example, the back of the legs, behind the ears, swelling, Some non-physical signs to look out for, like aggression from the child or the adult, unexplained falls, signs of malnutrition, failure to seek medical treatment, and also the child or the adult not engaging and become withdrawn. So that's
Very
it
good
from us.
start.
Wow,
Absolutely
that is excellent.
excellent start.
Excellent start.
You covered a lot
really
there.
covered quite a lot there. Brilliant. Thank you.
Well done. That was very good. And then we're going to move on now to room 2, emotional abuse.
Okay, I'll cover that one very quickly. So emotional abuse is abuse where you may end up manipulating an individual, coercion, using fear, opening them to subject to trauma, isolating the individual, dealing with or messing up with the person's psychological or emotional feelings, like scaring them, for example. That's a general overview of what emotional abuse will be from our group. Yeah. Possible signs and symptoms. We're very aware that emotional abuse covers every area on the track. Yeah, because everything. So issues that you might see the child or the adult being more isolated. They might regress. You may find the opposite to regression, which would be outbursts. You may see signs of self-harm, suicidal tendencies. They may pull back in academic achievements at school. They may have low self-esteem, low self-confidence, and maybe open to sexual exploitation, and maybe non-trusting, maybe at school again, running away from school, running away from individuals, no attachment issues going on, feeling very worried. And the main thing is that there's a change in the person's personality compared to their usually default position. So they change completely from the person that you knew over the last few weeks and months. We had a whole pile more, but for time, we'll just stay with those.
And I think the key thing you said was, with all of the abuses, it always normally does have some emotional abuse as a starting point, and then they'll go on to do other forms of abuse. So again, well done. Thank you so much to group 2. So room 3 is sexual abuse.
Yeah. Sexual abuse, we discuss it's a very thingy topic, but with physical abuse, some of what Brother Mark just said tie in with some of the sexual abuse. But sexual abuse is really forcing someone against their will, or it can be language. You can talk to them, you can use words, and they feel as if they've been sexually abused. And some of the indication of sexual abuse is they become promiscuous, they underachieve, depression, anxiety, withdrawn, and like if they're in the place where the abuse happened, they will become either anxious or they will feel withdrawn, as in feel shy. We have done a great length of talking about sexual abuse, and we even divert into how we can help to prevent the sexual abuse happening really within church settings, where we have the policies in place, as what my brother said, and also both parents and the leaders of each different department to be trained, I would say regularly, to update them on the safeguarding of both adults and children in regards to this area of abuse, because there's a lot of things that may seem like nothing, that it won't cause an abuse, but in fact, it may cause an abuse in the long term. So that's where we need the policies of the church, along with parents, caregivers, and ministry leaders to come on board, where we do regular training, because sexual abuse can be overlooked as well as nothing. Yeah.
Yeah, we say a little bit more about it as we come. Yeah, thank you for that.
I think it's just worth mentioning that, especially with children won't necessarily be aware that they have been sexually abused. So yes, you will have those, you can have, obviously, if they're older, there could be a pregnancy. That's a sign that someone has been sexually abused, or there can be bleeding around the genital area. But also the fact that they can, you could be forced to have a look at pornographic material or things like that. So it's not always physical signs that someone's been sexually abused as well. So we just have to bear in mind that might not be evident. Okay, so if we go on to room 4, but thank you so much for your feedback there. So room 4, looking at neglect.
Okay. Neglect, we discussed that it can cover a broad spectrum of like areas where a child or an adult need could be neglected. So the definition of neglect, we said that is depriving someone of everyday needs like food, ignoring their if they want to talk to you. It's the persistent failure of meeting these needs, like for an example, medical needs, educational needs, not providing food, shelter, spiritual needs, physical needs like clothing, and failure to supervise children or adults, vulnerable adults, and putting safety measures in terms of internet, because we know children are up to this internet thing and using gadgets. So that was our definition.
And what are some of these indicators of neglect?
Okay, so we did it in categories like around physical neglect. A child could be left dirty, smelling, the clothes not washed, untreated medical conditions. We looked at head lice. A child could be malnourished. They could be tired, and using gadgets and accessing like dangerous websites. That is physical. So we came to educational, persistent absence from school, and falling behind, not achieving targets, like their peers, and not doing homework, and parents not supervising homework at home. And then we came to emotional. A child could be anxious, withdrawn, they could be hyperactive, they could be aggressive, they could be clingy, and they could self-harm and use drugs. Yeah, and then we spoke about part of physical. I missed this one. Home conditions. If the home is dirty, the children's bedroom is dirty, the bedding and the bedwetting, and the room is smelly, the bedding is not washed. So that could be classed as physical neglect as well. And also we said about medical needs, that includes dental needs, not taking children to the dentist and not supervising them whilst brushing their teeth. Yeah, I think that's all. Unless if I've missed anything, I think that's all.
You've got a very good list.
Good list, yeah.
You've got there. Just to also mention, there's children hoarding food or hiding food or stealing
Oh
food.
yeah, sorry, I missed that one.
No,
Group
but you've
stealing
covered a
food
lot.
from school.
You've covered a
Yeah.
lot. There were just 2 that came to my mind. So well done.
Yeah, thank you.
So room 5, we have spiritual abuse.
Hiya. Yeah, we had a definition of spiritual abuse as any attempt to exert power and control over someone using religious or faith and beliefs. And we sort of said this can happen within a religious organization or personal relationship. So parent to child, partner to partner, even just church member to church member, that. And it's not limited to a religious organization, denomination, or people group. So within cultures, it can cross cultures really in terms. And the indicators, we said some indicators were if, you can see overzealousness in terms of, some people saying, oh, I've got to go and pray, and I've got to pray 3 times, and I've got to go in the closet, and I've got to do this 3-hour prayer. We sort of said you could have persons. One of the things we said was that spiritual abuse can overlap financial abuse and other abuses. because sexual abuse you can have where church members, you know, like Pastor was saying, inappropriately approaching, you know, younger members or other members that are vulnerable. You know, it's sometimes like, and it's visitors, when you have somebody who takes the visitor book and takes phone numbers out and then contact people from the, you know, all of that is, they're using their power that they've
So
got.
how would that be seen? How would you know that someone's suffering from spiritual abuse? How will it manifest itself within an individual?
It can manifest itself by somebody, and we had a long discussion about this. Somebody may give more money than you would think. So I had somebody ring me about a church member, Seventh-day Adventist, who gave £10,000 as tithe, and that person had gone to the bank for a loan to buy a house and gave part of that loan as tithe. But what we said, it's sometimes difficult to approach somebody around things like this because you've got to be tactful and go like, do you, you know, we're just checking that you understand the tithing system and, you know, whatever. So it's things like that. You can see, we didn't discuss this, but it came to me after. People suffering dementia, older members suffering dementia may go off the message because their brain does not, and they might start saying, I don't want to go to church, I don't believe in God no more, or things like that. You've got to just keep praying for them because it's not them. It might be the mental health condition, anxiety, that sort of thing. So those are some indicators that we said, you know, indicators might be a child who's coming to church, but they just sit there and they might be on their phone or they're lackluster in church. They're not, and that may be a teenager coming up, maybe 15, 16, 17. They don't want to be there anymore, but they've got to come. Okay. And yeah.
Thank you. No, that's you've covered that well. I see Elder Mark's got his hand up.
Sorry, I'm coming here. Yeah, I'm going to add to this because the manifestation of the symptoms, as rightly mentioned, could also be that the individual suddenly becomes almost overly religious because of the pastor or a church leader saying, do this, do that, do this and that. So they actually give up their own wishes and feelings for somebody else's wishes and feelings. But because it comes in the name of Jesus Christ, it's seen as okay. David Koresh was an example of that situation with Waco, for example, and Jim Jones, the same situation. So it's a manipulation of an individual whose lifestyle changes and become almost extreme in religious beliefs because somebody else's directive to them. Rather than what God says, it's Pastor John said that, Elder Mark said that, and God doesn't come into it anymore.
It goes to the individual, which is a danger, always a danger, isn't it?
Yeah.
But you see, these are the kind of things we need to have these open discussions in church.
Yes, we do.
Talk about this. This is more, I know we're touching on it here, but this is more what I call the awareness days. What some of the 31/8 do, their religious organization as well, they have what they call Safeguarding Sunday because that's their day. We have Sabbath. But why don't we make some days which is Safeguarding Sabbath? Sometimes when there's been throughout this term, we've had a couple of programs that we have done, which has been an emphasis on safeguarding. We've actually not done it in the way like this, but very generally, but had those discussions, and there have been safeguarding days. So we can set some times when we can get the church involved. Let us discuss these things. Let us talk about these things. Let us make it more practical. And this is what's going to make a difference now.
I've actually discussed, Pastor, doing that in our church, where we're going to actually have safeguarding, where we have breakout little groups like this, and people talk, because we don't talk enough about safeguarding. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Somebody just apologized. They have to leave. Understand. Thank you for, we'll be in touch. Elder Becky, I saw your hand.
Yeah, just it's sort of probably the point you're making, Pastor. I think what we started doing, so we started the year, we had a safeguarding Sabbath, keeping the church family safe Sabbath. So we did it in January and we thought that was really useful. But even from that, it helped us to realize that probably we need more of that rather than just as a one-off event.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, and this is the sort of thing that needs to happen now, and particularly as we open up some more things. But we're going to work a little bit through that as we're going through. But yeah, thank you, Elder Becky, for that, and that is important. The more churches do it, let's write in this, let us know how it went, because this is the sort of thing to encourage one another and to have open discussions. That's what we're trying to create, a time of discussing. We're all learning together here. This is what this is about. This is what this is about. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you so much. I can see there's so much more we can be discussing regarding the spiritual abuse. So room 6 was financial abuse.
Okay. It certainly made me think, and I will be putting on some sessions. Okay, so financial abuse, we said it was an exertion of power and control, to use exploitative measures, and an act of manipulation for their own financial gain.
Yes.
So the indicators, we had quite a broad discussion around this. Sometimes it can be subtle and sometimes not as subtle. So an example of it being exposed is you might go on a visit and you might notice that they might give an open disclosure about what's happening to you in terms of their materials have gone missing, money's gone missing. It could be a carer. I'm not saying that all carers are like this, but they could say that somebody who they've known it or been in a relationship with has taken their money. So that's more of the physical aspect. And then quite often financial, which is otherwise known as economical abuse, can be less subtle, and it can be interlinked with the other forms of abuse, such as like domestic abuse, where there's that coercive behaviour going on. So we talked a little bit about that. Just bear with me. It could be, we talked about when people can lack mental capacity, for example, and they're taken advantage of, and other people, and power of attorney is being used in those instances to gain financial gain of someone's property or their financial materials. It could be non-access to money. We talked about spouse and visa who are dependent on others. And we also talked about sometimes in order for the issues to become more prominent, other relatives may suspect it and put cameras in their homes as well. And then we had one example within the church setting where one participant had said, if you don't give money, then you won't be blessed. So there's that manipulation that can be seen within our churches as well.
Yes, which is, it's not good, is it? It's not good. And I think just, the person, I think it's linked again with the spiritual, the fact is, they're feeling anxious, they don't even want to come to church because they feel that every time they come to church, they're being asked, you need to give more, even when it comes to offerings and so forth. So there is that link there with this spiritual abuse. So people shouldn't feel stressed or anxious in any way. That could be another symptom along there. So thank you so much. And then room 7 is modern slavery.
Oh, was that you, Grace?
So Grace,
Yes.
Yeah.
So can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So we discussed modern slavery in our group, and we said that it affects a lot of people and could be happening right in our churches. Our definition of modern slavery is a term that covers situations where people can be coerced, threatened, or deceived, and it's used to exploit victims and undermine or deprive them of their freedom and finances. And it can be something that's happening right in our churches. An example was given of somebody that they'd gone to the Caribbean and had brought somebody over to act as nanny to their children. But when they got her here, she wasn't given time off. She wasn't paid properly. They had complete control of her. There are situations where people don't have, in terms of signs of what modern slavery looks like, people don't have control of their time. They don't have control of their papers. They don't have control of their money. They can be dropped off and picked up. They can be, reticent to talk about what's happening to them. So the onus is on us to be aware and to also be intentional. So we looked at some examples, for example, nail salons, car washes, etc. So we can ensure that we don't try as much as possible, that we don't contribute to modern slavery by using these types of places.
Thank you, Grace.
Okay.
I just saw something in the message, financial abuse not all linked to church. Be aware if people within our walls are being abused by those around them at home. Yeah, you see, it's about a community. It's about a community approach. So that's important. Somebody before Grace started to speak had their hand up, and I can't, for some reason, it's moved. My viewing screen has changed now, but I couldn't quite see who that was. Somebody could have their hand up.
I think I did put my hand up, but
Yes,
then when you moved on,
yes.
I put my hand back down. I found it interesting that I wanted to ask this question that can we also try and look within ourselves? I always wonder, why is it that within our church setting, we always have somebody promoting tithe and offering and giving religiously every Sabbath? Now, can that also contribute to some of the pressure that we put on people? Is it that we have to do that every week? That is one of the questions that perhaps maybe as a pastor, maybe you might be able to help on. Secondly, the other issue is acquisition of church buildings, where there is a lot of pressure on members to go into their finances, their pensions and stuff to try and help secure buildings. And the responsibilities of the conference, sometimes it can be found wanting. Can that also contribute to financial abuse? That's the question I wanted to ask.
Okay. So a couple of things have been stated there. Firstly, on the area of tithes and offerings, part of good stewardship is to be faithful to the Lord. But as we always say, this is my hot hat on the stewardship thing, it's not just about our finances. You first need to surrender your heart to God. All the other aspects have to be right. But I think sometimes the problem is when we do make these announcements, that's all we're concentrating on. Whereas probably if those of you who are using some of the offering books we've recently sent out and the videos will realize that during that tithes and offering time, it's about sharing the testimonies of people and sharing the experiences of people of being faithful to God. And maybe if we start more using these approaches, because the material is there, people wouldn't feel it's just about money. It's more about our surrender, and God is interested in all aspects of our life. But I don't want to go too much into it, but that's what it is about. I think it's our approach, and that we're not using the materials which are readily available. With church buildings, it is true, not so much the conference, but it's SDAA which owns our buildings. There's a reason for that, so no one individual can take control and manipulate things as well. That's the reason for that. But it is a practice that each church is individually responsible. There is a lot of support given from the conference perspective in terms of buildings, and we've even increased the support this year more than what we had before. However, there is only so much cake to go around, and all of us need to grow together. But it's not about people putting their own families at risk. It's about, as the Lord has blessed, if you have a desire to work in the Church of God, we all partners together, and all of us collectively have that responsibility. And that's where the principle comes of raising funds to deliver things. It's about a collective responsibility. But I think sometimes a lot of it is the spirit in which it is done and helping people to understand that, and let's work in together. So maybe probably more education needs to be done, but I agree, sometimes the way things are put across, it can give the wrong impression. And I always say to people, we're all in different journeys. let the Spirit of God lead us into where he wants us to be, and let us grow together and pray for one another, never abuse each other, and certainly never try to browbeat each other into doing things which we're not doing with a willing heart. Because trust me, God does not want us to give him things, even finances, if it's not with a willing heart. That's not what God wants. God wants first and foremost our hearts and our minds, and to be surrendered to him and to partner with him. He doesn't want us to do anything because we feel forced to do. That's not how the Lord works. So we need to be thinking about how we do things. Sometimes it's not what we say, it's how we say it, if that makes sense. And I'm just trying to give a general answer there to help with that, but something for us to think about. Anyway, Delamon, what was the next one we had?
So it's room 8, and that's radicalization.
Very important.
Hi, everyone. We were looking at radicalization, and we agreed from what has already been discussed, I think, is an extension of spiritual abuse in one form or another. We defined it as a change from having moderate views, that process from having moderate views to extreme ideological views that can be either religious beliefs or it can be political beliefs. So someone becomes an extreme in one particular phase or one particular aspect of their belief systems. We say that this can happen, I mean, whether within the church family, we cannot only say see it outside, can happen within the church family. Already someone has already mentioned David Koresh incident. That is a form of radicalization. We also have had people becoming extreme on their belief systems on Sister White and on vegetarianism. Or kneeling in every prayer, on all those things. These things happen even within the church. What are the signs of someone who is being radicalized? They become obsessed in a certain group of people, or on a particular individual who holds the beliefs that they are being drawn towards. They've got anger or intolerance towards anyone who does not agree with them or does not agree with that particular set of beliefs. They become secretive. If they think that you will not agree with them, they won't tell you. They become secretive on what they believe. And lack of feeling of belonging. Someone said the children can start becoming disobedient. There's behavior change in the children, which was not there. Suddenly the child has become disobedient and angry and things like that. And there's high signs of injustice, feeling of injustice in everything that if especially when it comes to discipline, if it's in the family or more in the church or in that particular set of beliefs. Yeah, it's a difficult subject, but at times an example was given that at times when someone is becoming radicalized within our own belief system, we think that they are becoming more spiritual, more zealous in what we believe, yet there's something underlying wrong that is going on. So we have to be careful on the praise that we give to people, because we might realize it late that this thing, a dangerous thing, has been taking place in that particular individual when the damage has already been done. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. No, you made some very good points. Can I just while we're doing this, then just pause to say one thing here, and that is that I see a lot of messages coming through, and I see some people are going to have to leave. Now, I don't know if we made this very clear at the beginning. Part of this training, it's a twofold training. you've attended, which is brilliant, and that's a good start. But in order to successfully have completed this training and have that certificate, we're going to have a test. Now, we're not going to do the test here and now, but we're going to email you a little questionnaire, which we need you to send back, ideally within the week, really. 2 weeks maximum, absolute maximum. I need to send it back. So most people, it's very hard to fail this. If you take time to read some of the policy and look at what we've done today, it's very hard to fail this. But we just need you to do it's just to test what you've understood. Once that is back, that will be marked because of the numbers. Give us a while because obviously we've got a big number here, but we'll get them marked. We'll send you a certificate, and once you've passed that, that is when you have qualified and you know can move on to your roles. But that is important. You do the test. We did a training just before Christmas, and we had a reasonable number come, but only a handful have returned. And I've got to now email those people out to say, look, if we don't get those test papers back, we have to then tell the pastor, well, you know, they just haven't come through. So I don't want that to happen here. We've got a good number here. I'm just encouraging you. So those of you who may go and miss that announcement, that's why I'm saying it now. Please, we'll send that out literally not long after the course is done. By today, tomorrow, you'll get that out. Please do that. Get it back to us as quick as possible so we can do. If you haven't received it, well, you should receive it unless your emails aren't right. I did send some stuff out today and some emails bounced. I was a little concerned, but hopefully your emails should be correct. If you haven't, you need to contact us at the conference, please. And my secretary, Maxine, would ensure that is sent out to you. But it's very important that you do that. So I appreciate some of you may have to go. I know Beth is leaving at 1. We're going to carry on till 1, then have a half an hour break. And then we'll just wrap things up as we come back. But we're getting through quite nicely. And I hope this is helping, hearing people share these different. This is part of our learning process. That's why we're doing this at this moment. We've only got a couple more left, haven't we? Yeah.
So we've got room 9, child trafficking.
Okay. So we looked at child trafficking, which is the movement of children from their homes to be exploited without appropriate authority or documentation. So the illegal movement of children, basically. And we looked at some of the reasons why children may be trafficked. So we looked at obviously sexual exploitation, modern day slavery, drug involvement, organ donor. The thing about trafficked children is they're quite often hidden children. So some of the signs and the outward alerts that we might see are quite often not there because the children are hidden. So one of the things we may need to be aware of is if children have gone missing, is there an explanation? But where children are at and we do have the opportunity to see these children, then we're kind of looking at, the behaviour of the children. If they're with an adult, are they looking at that adult and you're talking to the child? Are they looking at the adult for approval to answer a question? Are they making eye contact with you? The guardian doesn't allow that child to integrate with other people. The child appears shy. And we know all children can be shy, but over a period of time, you're observing that this child is not kind of moving on. Their educational milestones are not being met. There may be a language problem where the child's just not learning, picking up any words that they can communicate with people. They're not moving on in their educational understanding. Does the child seem isolated? So is that child being kept away from other children? It's not being allowed the opportunity to integrate. So the child is withdrawn, not communicating, feels uncomfortable, doesn't seem to settle, fidgety, looking for trying not to draw attention to itself. Sometimes the way the child is dressed, and sometimes that child can experience shock. So mental health in concerns as well. So they're the things that we looked at.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And we're moving on to room 10, which is child sexual exploitation.
Yeah, we looked at child sexual exploitation. I think the first thing that we acknowledge is that it's a difficult one. But we looked at the definition on the child sexual exploitation, and then we agreed that it's a coercive control by the perpetrator to a child to perform some social activities and criminal activities in return for either money or some gifts. And we also looked at child sexual exploitation in relation to children being trafficked, and then also being maybe sold or given to some people who may be rich in return for the perpetrator to get some money. And we also looked at the child, obviously, in terms of the exploitation around the pornography, where getting those pornography videos and things like that by the perpetrator. So that's in a nutshell about the trying to define child sexual exploitation. We looked at what are the indicators that a child is being sexually exploited. Children could be, or a child could be missing school. That's one sign. And the child could be stopping late at nights and not going to sleep, eventually getting tired or being tired in the mornings. And also a child having unexplained large sums of money and some expensive gifts, designer clothes, bags and stuff like that. And also child probably engaging into drugs and alcohol misuse. We also looked at a child being more secretive with things and also having sexual behaviors, maybe towards others or their age or other people. And we also, the other signs could be some sexual transmitted diseases from a child. And we also, secretive, I've mentioned that, sexual, have large sums of money, missing schools. And we also, in terms of one thing that I forgot, in terms of the what child sexual exploitation may look like, where families are in debt and then they're using their child to have sexual, probably sexual intercourse with somebody else as payment of their debt. So yeah, we said in this, it's one of those, it was acknowledged in our group that it's a new subject to other people, which is seem difficult. And then also that probably it would be helpful if conversation are held in churches and having people who have got some understanding around this, sharing with the church family so that they will be able to understand and know and probably read some of these signs, as some of these signs are a little bit subtly and they're not be obvious to people or families who might not even realize that their child is going through that. We also spoke about the cultural differences, that it could be a shame to some other people to probably talk about those things. And we also spoke about that it would be important that as parents, as church, we build a very good relationship with our children, so that probably when they've gone out, whether there's pathfinders or whatever, and when they come back, when you've got a very good relationship, we can sit down with them in a safe environment for them to share their experiences. And in that way, when we've got good relationship with our children, they are likely to share what is going on in their life. So Yeah, that's in a nutshell what we discussed about child sexual exploitation.
Thank you.
Yes.
Someone just did, I saw a message pop up about this training. Does all the officers have to be here? Well, not necessarily. It's good when you can come to this, but so long as you as safeguarding leads are here, the idea is you need in a local level to be taking your other officers in church through this training process. That is the idea. Now, what I'm going to probably do, because we have a new policy as well now, myself, I'm working with my SEC counterpart on this, but we'll probably, if you want, if any of you are struggling with this, you can come back to us afterwards and we could probably set a little special discussion for you guys who are safeguarding leads, because we want to make sure you're equipped enough to feel confident, because that's what you should be after this, to be confident to go and at least deliver it on a local level. So we're just going to go for the next two. We've got 2 more points now, and this we can start wrapping up this section. But I hope this is helping, because this is part of learning by sharing and discussing. This is what this bit of exercise is doing now. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you for sharing.
Thank
with
you,
us.
brother. Yeah, thank you.
So room 11, female genital mutilation.
Okay, so that's I'm doing that one. And just to say, we're gonna be quite explicit with this. So the definition that we've got as a group is the cutting of the genital area to different degrees. So this can involve the clitoris or the labia to varying levels. It's done against the child's will, as a child cannot give consent. It causes both physical and emotional trauma with lifelong consequences of pain, infections, infertility, and even death. So the signs that we've got are, it's usually something that takes place around the 6-week holiday. So for us just to be aware of that. Some of the things that we might see is the dynamics will change between the parents and the child. So if they come into church or we see them in the playground, but also the dynamics might change between the parents or the caregivers with us, because they know that something's happened that really is illegal in this country. The child may say that they're going on a holiday, going abroad to visit aunties, or they might say that they're going for a celebration for a coming of age. But coming of age isn't appropriate because it normally happens from babies up to about 8 or 9 years old. A lot of it does take place in London. So the child might tell you they're going to London, but they don't know anybody in London. When it's happened, you might see a change in their personality. They become withdrawn, they become tearful, distant, schoolwork may suffer, may frequently be going to the toilet, or we might even be aware that they've got inappropriate bleeding for their age. Absence from school. We might get this reported to us by children that are older now, but it still happened in this country. And so they might not want to marry, not want to go into sexual relationships because of the difficulties that are going to happen because of the mutilation that they've gone through. And we may find a lot of this information out, but because they come to us to talk to, so they access us for personal confidential speaking, and then this information comes out. We might see one of the persons in our group made a really good comment that you might see them wearing long sleeve clothes in hot weather, and we might wonder why they not dress appropriately. But this might be because they're hiding self-harming, because that's what they're doing to deal with what they've gone through. Reduced self-esteem and a change in their self-image. You may well see that they don't interact with their friends and peers the way that they used to, and become very conscious of themselves, depressed, and even look quite vulnerable, and just a loss of confidence. And we may even hear them expressing suicidal thoughts.
Well, you've covered it very well, and it's a very sad thing for anybody to have to go through. But we have to be aware, because there may be people coming into our churches who have unfortunately had to go through some of these things. and at least we can give them some support and signpost them to where they can get some help. So thank you for that. I think we have got a point there.
We have a raised hands, Erasmus, yes.
Yes, you know that that point is a little bit difficult and sensitive because I am from Uganda and we have some tribes that do that practice, but they don't do it with children. And actually, the girls are in their kind of consent decisions, and on a large scale, they are proud of it. So it's just at times it's very difficult to consent in public, but then privately there are those who are proud of going through that exercise. So it's a challenging situation.
Yeah. Yeah, I do appreciate, you know, Elder, you've been open enough to bring that up, and I think we have to be conscious of the fact that we have many different cultural groups within our church, and I do accept when we bring up these things, it can be emotive, it causes a lot of challenges and battles and stuff. And hence the reason why I think it is very important to start having these open discussions. And then probably as we start to discuss things and we can work through issues better, we can find a better way to navigate around keeping within where the law is and keeping within our safety, but also having that understanding and how do we meet those challenges. And that discussion can't happen on this platform now, but it can certainly happen in your local churches. And this is why we bring it up. And there's a lot of material, particularly on our sexuality and stuff, a lot of things, and it's there and it's available. As we go to churches, we try to help, but we've also are training people to live as well, and that's important. So we will, now I think this point is very important actually. The point is it's illegal, this country, and that is the point, as it's been said, but also what I'm saying, we need to start having those open discussions, because when we leave it and don't discuss it and things happen in private, that's when the issues come. So it's about addressing these things and having some open discussions and realizing, you know, maybe some of us may have to start to rethink some of those things we thought, you know, that's how we grow. That's part of growth. And we have to work within the legislation that we have, that this is so important. So that's the reason why we're bringing this up. I think that was, last point. Yeah. Okay. Last
So
point.
we have our last one. Thank you for being so patient.
You've done well.
Ring 12, organizational abuse.
Oh, hi everyone. Now with organizational abuse, one person literally summed it up. So I'll say it was all about policies, work practices, the culture, the workplace, the processes, the supervision, and people declaring. And they said it's things like church being a place where most people will be most abused, because people will either belittle it, ignore it, cover it up, encourage within setting, intimidation. We looked at positions not in place, people not trained to deal with abuse, show leadership of church, how to value abuse. We looked at examples of complacency, where everybody who just comes to church is allowed to just, even from other churches. And one of the things that was mentioned was previously people used to have a letter of introduction from their previous church, kind of, this is a person of good standing, or, you know, like just not just accepting people at face value, talking about signposting and people are afraid to speak out. We talked about, someone shared a testimony and how we don't have enough counseling services, or people don't know these things are there. And then we also looked at indicators, church attitude, the building, even the building, how we deal with it, how we respect people, lack of privacy, choice. We looked at confidentiality as well, and then how we dress up abuse. So kind of in a nutshell, that's what our team, I hope I've done it justice, team. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Mildred. Thank you so much. I'm really conscious of the fact that, you know, whenever we bring up these issues, a lot comes up, a lot of things start, and please, you know, outside of this platform, feel free for us to talk. Remember, the counselling service is always there. But it's about beginning that process, and sometimes for some that's going to be a harder journey because of where we come from. But it's about being willing to start off, say, let's have these discussions and let's see what is, understand where we are, understand our legislation, and do that. We're going to go to one, and then we're going to sort of break. No, because people have already expressed they need some. I have to go, so we're going to go to one.
Okay.
Because normally all our training goes to one anyway. But we appreciate we have to carry on. Right. We will obviously break at one, and then, you know, give you time to get something to eat, and then we'll come back and we'll wrap this up. We're not going to go for a very extensive session to break up. We're just going to try and close off this. But there's quite a bit to go through. So let's see what we can do now, Delavan, in the brief time we have. Yeah.
So we have obviously completed this section of the feedback, so we'll move on now. Okay, so I think it's just important for us to have a look at, it says here, harm to another child. The statistics are showing that 1/3 of all sexual abuse of children is actually committed by someone under the age of 18. Now, this is going to have implications, and we should be aware of this statistics. And it says that younger children may take part in inappropriate interactions without even necessarily understanding how it might be hurtful to others. So the indicators of this is you may have so we're talking like anyone from sometimes as young as 7, sometimes as young as 7, 8, 9 and upwards, up to, it says they're 18. They will, if you've noticed that particular children will seek out the company of younger children, and they tend to spend unusual amounts of time or large amounts of time with them rather than children of their own age. That could be an indicator that there's something untoward happening. Or they are with younger children and are saying, oh, we're going to be going to our secret place, you know, and go to wherever they go to, and they say, well, this is our special game. Again, and where the children are, whatever they may be doing, playing doctors or dressing or special touching games. And you might find that children become anxious around a particular person. These are warning signs that there may be something happening that you need to be aware of.
Yeah, and I think just to point out as well, I'm just looking at the new policy now, because when you get it on page 6, they've added this section now, signs that a child or teen may be at risk of harm or of another child. And it says more than 1/3 of all sexual abuse of children is committed by someone under the age of 18. And it lists some possible indicators. And I think you've said some of them here. Gestures and all of these things. And then what we are actually doing is, and it talks about the anxiousness, depressed, or seemingly in need of help. And this now section has been added into the policy because it's a real thing, it's happening. And what we have discovered is a lot more of the abuse cases now are happening with children. You're with me? So you may have a child running a group kind of thing, or leading, you know what I mean? this is the worry now. So we need, I think part of it as well is not helped. And there's a lot on that. And as parents, I guess there's a lot of more work needs to be done. Children have these smartphones now. They're having so much exposure to internet and pornography. So much stuff is being thrown at them. They're developing too quickly and developing in the wrong ways. And it's how do we guide that and manage that? And that is spilling over obviously into our churches. So it's being able to manage these things, definitely, which is so important.
So we just want to just quickly let you have a look at some information that is available on the NSPCC. You can get this on that site, and there's other sites as well.
Yeah.
But this is just so you're aware of some of the sexualized behavior in children, what is common and what is uncommon. So we're just going to quickly, briefly go through these. So under fives, what is common at that age for children to have no inhibitions about their nudity? We're talking young children here. Children normally do touch their private parts. They show curiosity about other people's private parts or naked bodies. That's a common behavior you will find in under fives. But what is uncommon for that age group is for children to discuss specific sexual acts, for those children to use explicit sexual language, and for those children to have adult-like sexual contact with other people. That's when you know that there may be something untoward and that child may have suffered from some sort of sexual abuse.
And then, of course, sexualized behavior for the 5 to 9s. What is common? It's common for children becoming more modest and asking for privacy as they get older. Obviously, they want to protect that. Children asking questions about sexual relationships, children exploring relationships and mimicking adult relationships, holding hands, kissing, all those sort of things. But what is uncommon for children to discuss specific sexual acts, it's uncommon for children to self-stimulate in public, and it's uncommon to have an adult-like sexual interactions. What we're going to do, some of these things, we're going to create a safeguarding page for the NEC website, which will, similar to what the BUC are doing. Some of these points we'll put up. We'll try and put some of the links for the NSPCC links up. Give us a couple of weeks to get all that. Our comms are going to be working on this. And you can then reference these things and all your key documents like you need. We're going to put those up so you can access them easily. And this will help reinforce that. But it's good to just look at these things, do the comparisons and contrasting, and it just helps you to be more aware as officers as well. And that's what we're trying to do here.
And so for the 9 to 13-year-olds, what is common is for children to want to have romantic relationships, for children to use sexual language and discuss this with their peers, because they naturally are finding out about sex as they get older, and for them to be wanting to find out information about sex, whether that be in books, online, or in the media. And bearing in mind this, I think as parents, rather than them getting their information about sex from online, this is just a family life thing now, just having a quick plug here, please have those discussions in your churches, have it within your families about what are healthy sexual relationships, rather than them finding this out from their peers and from social media. But what is uncommon with this age group is for children to display sexual behavior in a public place. And the next bullet there is for regular displays of adult-like sexual behavior, such as having oral or genital contact or intercourse. So this is what's been highlighted from the NSPCC. We thought it'd be useful for you to have that information.
Yeah, it's good. It's important.
So this is not an exhaustive list, but this is just some examples of some of the different types of abuse that are out there. Like I said, you know, we haven't got every single one out there, but this is quite a fair amount there.
There was a report done back in 2021, Child Protection Religious Organisations, and it highlighted, unfortunately, some of the moral failing of some religious type organizations. As it so happens, our church was not the ones investigated. However, that is not for us to be complacent, because some of the issues which came out, people trying to, because of wanting to protect their institution, hide things, and all of those things, doesn't mean we may not have issues. So it's about trying to look at that report, and I will send you a copy of that so you can see it. I'm not going to take the time now, but we'll send you a copy, and we'll basically just go through it, and then you can see, look at our own situation and see, is there anything we can do to do better? You know, I know we already have something coming up, but part of the things were cultural acceptance. Some people said, because it's in my culture, I don't want to share, I don't want to let that out. I don't want to bring my name and my culture or my family down. So there was a lot of things. There was the shame issue, there was the apathy, there was the moral justification. No one is going to tell me how to bring up my children type of thing. There was the parental ownership. My child and I decide what happens, but then we need to have open discussions, and that's what this report builds out. So we will send you a copy of that, because I think it is worth being aware of that, and how do we manage those things, and that is important.
So it says here, Three Monkeys, the greatest obstacle in dealing with abuse is the belief that it's not happening. And I know it's not an easy thing to have to come to terms with, but unfortunately, it happens everywhere. There's not just one particular group that it takes place in. It takes place with doctors, lawyers, dentists, chemists, everybody, teachers, everybody and anybody. But the fact of the matter is, we as a church have to do what we can to actually safeguard the people within our churches and community to avoid it happening. So saying nothing is not a good thing, because somebody then obviously will suffer unnecessarily.
And of course, we all remember the story about Star Hobson and Arthur Hughes, and what happened there. And even when social workers was involved, you know, was things spotted. And there's so many incidences. You know, we've had recently, there was, I can't remember the names now, the older father who had a child over the Christmas period and died in the home, and the child was found dead, you know, with the father, and nobody sort of recognized that till days after in the new year. And all of different things are happening around us, and the question is, we need to have our eyes and ears and be alert and have care for one another, and we can learn from all of these incidences, and that's what actually helps us really, learning from all of these things, and it's about tackling these things and not allowing them to go to the stage where they're just totally ignored, and that's what we're really saying there.
Can I just make a point there, Pastor?
Yeah.
With that little boy, it's just come to me actually. I remember hearing it on the news, and that was a very, very sad case. And it was on the recording, if I remember rightly. A little boy, he obviously recognized that he was being abused, he was being neglected. He was not being looked after, and on the recording it was saying, nobody loves me, nobody wants to feed me. And when I heard that, I thought that was heartbreaking, really, to hear that on a recording, a little boy who was left on his own, and he's saying, nobody loves me, nobody wants to feed me. And obviously he died, didn't he? And he was obviously aware that he was neglected, he was left alone, he was abandoned. So even at that age, I can't remember, how old did we say he was? 7? Something like that, 6, 7? And was aware of his situation, you know. and was crying out for help and didn't get that help, sadly. So yeah, I just wanted to share that. Really, it was heartbreaking when I heard it. Yeah,
So all of these things are, but
yeah,
they're wake up calls for us as well.
yeah.
Because we all have a responsibility. Yeah. Okay, so this statement here is saying perpetrators tend to target the voluntary sector because guess what? They feel it's less regulated. So can you see why it's important now to bring in these kind of things, what we're doing now, and tighten up that so it is not made such an attractive place, but they think it is, and I guess that leads us on to the subject of grooming, isn't it, Delamon? When we think about that last statement I've just read there.
So this is it's actually been added in the new policy now.
Yes, it has, yeah.
It's on page 3 in the new policy. It says grooming is pattern behavior designed to increase opportunities for sexual assault. And grooming is when someone builds a relationship of trust and emotional connection with a child or young person so they can manipulate, exploit, and abuse them. So the question is, does this look like a possible groomer, do you think? Do you think that looks like a person who could be something?
No.
Exaggerated.
I like somebody said no. Okay.
Somewhat of an exaggeration there. The fact is, groomers look like you and me. They look like you and me, but what they do tend to do, they tend to take sometimes years to build up that trust, to build up that emotional connection. They want to be needed, and they actually target the people they want to actually abuse and befriend the family. Sad to say, and it could take actual years. And so, single parents are ideal, candidates, because, if you've got more than one child as a single parent, you're struggling, aren't you, sometimes to cope. You don't have anybody else to help with the childcare, help with the shopping, help with little jobs around the house. It's not easy, and so unfortunately that could be the case. They either target the parents or target children.
Yeah, and as it said here in the actual new policy, you notice what we've done, we've moved these things more to the front of the policy now. So it's on page 3, but then it takes you to page 17, which is grooming. It actually summarizes what is grooming, what are the types of grooming, talks about romantic relationship, different things. What does a groomer look like, signs of grooming, all of that is in, and you've got an appendix on it. So what we're going to try and do, these appendix are going to be put onto the safeguarding page that you'll be able to literally click on and pull that off, or use. So that's how we're going to try and do it. So that's why within the new policy, we've made things like this so it's easy access, because I know the policy looks big and thick, but if we can get the key points across, that's how we can do it. So that's how we're going to do it for you. So
could I just say something really, really quickly? Having looked at the policy and looked at what you're saying in this slide as well, it's important to know that it's also about not just specifically for sexual assault. There is the criminal, and it's so strongly interlinked as well. And it's not just parents, it could be children that are grooming other children. You might go into that later on, but I just didn't want that to get missed.
Yeah,
it's important. It's important. Yeah. Yes, it's important. Yes, thank you, Dawn.
So we're just going to have a look here at the tactics. So you target the victim, you gain their trust, you're fulfilling a need. Sometimes they haven't got a friend. Sometimes they wish they had that new pair of trainers. Sometimes, the trainers are bought for you. And then, of course, you've got a friend now who cares about you. They isolate the victim, sexualizing the relationship and maintaining control. So we're looking at a few signs here. The particular person who's groomed is secretive about how they're spending their time, including online. And as soon as you come into the room, all of a sudden the phone's been put away, the computer's shut. That's suspicious behavior. having an older boyfriend or girlfriend, like you said there, Dawn, you know, they are actually grooming that particular individual. Having money on new things like clothes and mobile phones that they've got no way of explaining. Getting involved in drinking, alcohol, drugs. Spending a lot of time online on the devices, like hours and hours. Being change of mood, being upset or withdrawn or distressed or depressed, you know, specific changes. Of course, we talked about the sexualized behavior. You notice them using specific sexual language, especially if they're young children, based on what we said earlier on. And spending long periods of time away from home, and you don't know where they are, you don't know who they're with. And we're just going to, I think, just end on that one.
Just end on
We'll just
this one,
got this last slide before we go to our
break.
break. Because this is just going to wrap this section up.
Right, so what is grooming online? It says a term used to describe the tactics abusers deploy through the internet to sexually exploit children, includes communications that seek to intimidate, control, manipulate, put down, falsely discredit or humiliate the recipient. It may also include threatening a person's earnings, employment, reputation, or safety, and sexting, which I think is what, I don't know if Dawn was touching on. It's a wide range of issues, and it's about really being aware. Now, yes, stop repeating. I think we're coming to one, so we're going to have a break. Mark, I saw something flash up. It looked quite interesting. Was it something you wanted to make people aware of?
Yeah, there's something called David Finkelhorn. He is a researcher. It's an old theory or an old kind of research where he looks at the 4 preconditions to grooming. And when we look at the there's 4 conditions to grooming. If you get a chance to type it into your web page, it's Finkelhorn. If I spelled it wrong, it's Finkelhor. And it's the 4 preconditions to grooming. And what David Finkelhorn explains is how the individual who's a groomer, what they go through in order to actually groom an individual person. So despite the fact that you have external parameters, i.e. I might get caught, you have to break down all those levels of barriers to eventually obtaining your final goal in abusing the individual. But it starts from in here, the internal inhibitors. The external would be getting caught, shame, losing your job, and so forth. But then you actually lose it's a conscience thing. You damage your conscience at every step, because what happens, you now begin to rationalize away that 1, I can get away with it. 2, I'm not as bad as anybody else. 3, I have problems in my life. And 4, the child really, really likes me. And after all, if they show love towards me, I should show love back towards the child. And they get to rationalize away. So when you go to the probation service now, and probation service will have ex-groomers there or abusers, they'll now explain why they abused and what happened. There's a kind of a dichotomy in their brains where they will give justifiable explanations of why they abused. And in most cases, they'll say it was the child's fault, like it overpowered me as the abuser. But Finkelhorn's research is quite interesting research to look through.
Okay, definitely. But yeah, please send us that link now. So thank you so much for sharing that. We're going to go into a break. I hope you don't all disappear in this break completely. You are allowed to turn your cameras off. So we're just going to go for half an hour to give you time to have a little break, get something to eat. So we'll start back dead on 1:30, and then we're going to pull it all together now to try and close off the section.
Got some other things that we need to cover still.
So some key things you need to know about procedures and stuff. So we're going to sum that up. So we'll see you guys back here at 1:30, and please now take this time to take a break. Just one thing I want to ask. I know Bethany's got to go, haven't you, Bethany? I think you may have already gone. I don't know. Mark, could I put you down as a co-host? Has he already gone? All right,
see.
I'll sort
We
it.
can
No
sort it
worries.
after.
We'll sort it after.
Is muted.
Oh,
He
Richard.
was speaking.
It's all right. He's not taking this mic off.
Sorry,
Sorry.
I'm back. Sorry, my apologies there. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to a homeless project now to help out. So I can be online, but I'll be
No
offline
problem. No
or
problem.
off camera, I should say.
Yes, that's no problem.
I think when we come back, though.
When we come back, no, he's not going to be able to. So let me see. Is Richard, Elder Richard, are you still with us? Okay. Don't worry. We'll sort it out when we come back. That's fine.
Okay.
See you guys later. Yeah. Take care.
Thank you.
Have a nice lunch.
God bless.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Me, I think. Okay, so we're just going to go for a summary now of everything. So Pastor Les Aki is overall the British Union, and a lot of us as directors sit on that committee, plus they have the exec committee which meets as well as a finalising. But when it comes to the actual safeguarding documents, both myself, both my counterpart in the South, and the missions, and also some of our other directors like Pathfinders, Pastor Acquisa, children's ministries will sit together to meet, but then the conference BUC have their own committee which ratifies the policy, which is made up of the presidents, it's made up of the secretaries, and there's part of the exec, but they're the ones. The BUC is overall with the safeguarding structure. So the policy you actually get is a British Union policy, which covers Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. So obviously the bits for us are mainly in England, if for England only. So what I tend to do is when we put it on our website, we just try to put those sections on. But the BUC will have the whole structure. Now, coming down from the BUC level, it comes down to the mission level, the mission and conference level, where we have our presidents, our designated safeguarding leads, which is myself in the NEC, Judy in the South, disclosure clerk, which is Pastor Emmanuel, he deals with the DBS side, and Yvonne, and then we have the communication spokesman, will obviously speak. Most likely, sometimes it is the president, whoever's appointed there. We will speak if there's a big case comes up or something. And that's basically the structure. And then that comes down to the local minister, which is where you are involved now, which overall, and we do say this to the ministers, and we are going to be doing some more vigorous training during this year. The book does ultimately start with your local pastor. However, within the church structure, you have a designated safeguarding lead, which is the person, as you've had this training, you need to be making sure the church is going through the policy. So it's about taking the church through the policy and letting them become aware. That's what your job really is, making sure good practice is happening in a local church level. The other person within the safeguarding aspect is the disclosure clerk, which ultimately handles the DBS, some of the technical side of it, making sure people are DBS checked. And there's times when both you, designated lead, and the disclosure clerk, you work together in the early stages, particularly get your checks done, all that together. And that is, as I say, handled by Emmanuel. There'll be some training on the 22nd for 1 hour of February. But of course, throughout the year, that can be offered. Once you are authorized, you can then do your DBS checks. So it's important those two work together. Now, the person who is responsible, when it says the responsible person, people say, well, who is that? Believe it or not, every church officer, every board member has to be a responsible person. What do we mean by that? We mean that we all have to look out for the interest of those around us and in the interest of safeguarding. So it doesn't just fall on those two people. Everybody who is a board member is responsible to ensure the church is protected. Our children are protected, our adults are protected. So we all have that responsibility. Hence the reason why it is good for us to be at this training, or at least get access to it, so you can know what is required. So that basically is the structure that we have. Now, at some point, we are going to put the policy up, isn't it? You've got the, yeah, you will do that, but okay, fine.
Yeah, we're just going to go in to look at some of the roles now.
Let's see if it moves. It looks like it's frozen. Okay.
So, and I've just seen this, we've seen in the chat there, there's somebody here saying that they've got all 3 roles because they're from a very small church. And it's saying that they've got all 3 roles, the designated lead.
Well,
and I feel sorry for you because that's not easy.
No. To be honest with you, the 2 main roles are really the designated safeguarding lead and the disclosure clerk. Yeah. Yes, you are a responsible person because you're an officer, but all the church board members are responsible people, and that may be something straight away you can highlight that they're all responsible, because that's trying to negate the responsibility. So that does not apply. You can't be the responsible and that covers it. It doesn't work that way. Every single church, the fact you are a board member, you are a responsible person, whether you want to be or not. That is the requirement. That's the first thing the authorities were going to ask. What systems have you as a board, you are the custodians of the church, put in place? So that needs to be cleared up there and then. Ideally, I would have to say, ideally, it is not good for one person to be doing the safeguarding lead role and the DBS role, because it's a lot to take on. I agree there may be some exceptions, and particularly now with where we are, somebody needs to take that on to help. And it may be, if you're saying you can't get anybody, maybe one of those elders, maybe somebody needs to look at it, and that needs to be re-looked at. And in the bigger churches, we often encourage a kind of a safeguarding team, maybe through some of the children's departments, 1 or 2 key people who can be there to be around, because the bigger churches need to be thinking about that. It cannot always rest on 1 or 2 individuals. Sometimes it's about creating that team effect and helping that to work, and that's where it comes successfully. So that probably does need to be revisited, and maybe someone else needs to look. But what every board member needs to realize, and this is where I think the problem is, that's why that policy needs to be taken out at the boards, with the pastor help is there as well to guide you doing this. Ultimately, every board member is responsible.
Okay, so what we're going to do now, this section is very important, okay? So please take note of this section. This is on page 4 of your policy that you'll get from the website. You can download the policy and refer to that. And there are 2 sections. A lot of people sometimes get confused, but there are 2 sections in the policy. On page 3, it talks about these roles, but it talks about it from the perspective of the conference. So you don't want to look at that section where it's talking about the conference roles. You want to look at it from the perspective of the church roles. So let's just clarify what the role is. So the safeguarding person leads on safeguarding matters on behalf of the church. And some people sometimes get this mixed up and they say they're leading on behalf of the mission or the conference. You will not get any points for putting mission and conference. You are leading on safeguarding matters on behalf of the church, okay? You are acting as an advocate on behalf of children, adults who are in need of protection. You deal with safeguarding concerns and suspicions of abuse, keeping accurate records. And it's very important that you keep these accurate records, because you may need to pass these on to the police or to social services if there's an incident that takes place. So it has to be kept accurately and in a safe, secure place. You are the person who are going to be checking that the policy is being followed. So you'll make sure that your staff are aware of the policy. And as been already mentioned, you will be don't try and do everything in one session, but when you have your meetings, just bring up some of the points from the policy. And every time you have a meeting, have at least 10 or 15 minutes where you're referring to the policy, making all of your team aware of the policy and the guidance and what they should be doing. You promote protection of children and adults at risk. You organise training for the staff and for your volunteers. Obviously, the conference will let you know when the days are being put on, making sure that everyone is getting that training. And you work in partnership with other agencies because, like I said, you are a crucial person that they will be coming to you and asking questions. You have to be able to provide that information for them.
Right.
The disclosure clock, yeah.
The disclosure clock. I think it might be helpful to go to this new policy, you know, because it summarizes it here in this appendix.
Well, I can go to it. I'll have to close this.
Yeah, we close this.
Should we just put them all up first?
Yeah. Let's put them all up. Just put them all up on the screen so you can see, because it's mainly administrative, organizing the checks, you know, maintaining up-to-date list. All of that is given in the training that Emmanuel will give. But this is really good. Yeah. 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 So all of this here is just showing you the actual steps which are and the roles which take part.
Sorry, did you want me to come out?
Yeah. I would like to take you just so you can see how the new policy looks, because I think it's really, really good the way it actually does it. There is an appendix on page 38 on the new policy, which looks at appendix 3, and it really summarizes the safeguarding roles and responsibilities from British Union level going down. And yeah, page 38. It really is good. So this is like a snapshot. We can't send you this just yet because there's a few wording needs to be tweaked. But once, I'm hoping this is going to be ratified at the BUC meeting. Well, I was told by Pastor Aki probably this Wednesday. Once it's approved, we can send it out and we'll put it up on our websites. But until that happens, unfortunately, we have to just kind of, yeah, it's probably not going to show as easy on there.
Which page do you say?
Right, it's appendix, yeah, it's appendix actually 3. It's page 38 on here, but it's appendix 3. It's just after this one, yeah.
Okay.
We've got appendix 2. So this is, now what we're going to do, this is the beauty of this now, and the BUC is doing something similar. We're going to try and put these appendixes, it may take a bit of time for our team, we're going to try and put them on the website so that you can just download that individual page as well as having the whole book, which I think will be really, really helpful to you guys. Right, so here you see it's giving a summary of what the responsible person is here. You see, look, so it's saying, you can stop there, it says the head of the department in the church is responsible. This is something you need to point out to the elders to ensure, you know, they're responsible, local pastor has responsibilities, and it gives you the task, the disclosure clerk, and their responsibilities. And it obviously, from a conference level, that would be a manual, but from a local level, you have to be able to give the reports back to us, those kind of things. And then as you go down, right, okay, go back to the slide then now. We're going to try and, yeah, the problem.
That goes first.
Yeah, right. We're trying to switch between slides now so you can see. Right, and I think this is really crucial for the DBS or the disclosure clerk. All volunteers who have contact with children, all adults, are at risk and are required to have a DBS check in order to fulfill their roles. And as someone once said to me only recently, it's not just because of, you know, inappropriate sexual behavior that needs to be done. Sometimes you may have someone come to church, you may be fine in those areas, but have an issue with their honesty with money and stuff like that. That's the sort of thing comes up in a DBS. So you need to have a DBS. It's not enough to say I've got it at work, because if you went to your work and you said to your workplace, oh, I don't need to get your DBS, I've got one at church. Do you think your employer would accept that? No, because each organization has its own ethos and its own way of doing things. And the church, it doesn't cost you anything, but the DBS, I agree, is only as good as the day it was done, but it helps you to be following some procedures. And along with training, it's important. So what we're now trying to say is really people should not be serving in post if they haven't had the training and the DBS as well. But it really is that crucial. And we do an enhanced one as a church. So I can see some hands now are coming up. So I thought this would trigger some questions. So Jotham, or Joham, is it? Jotham, sorry.
Yeah, it's Jotham. Pastor, I wanted probably that you do some bit of clarity in terms of the responsibilities of probably the safeguarding lead, and obviously maybe in terms of the department within the confines of the law of the land, because you've got child protection, you've got adult safeguarding, and for us we are looking at these, but I can see the emphasis is more on children. We've got vulnerable adults who we in their homes and things like that. So when a safeguarding concern has been raised, probably to disconnected people, there's also a something is put in there that maybe children not questioned during that period of time. So as safeguarding lead within the church, we need to know our responsibilities in terms of what we need to do. Are we the investigators? We are not the investigators, as far as I understand. We are not the investigators of the safeguarding. It is the responsibility of the local authority. So our role is to, obviously, once we have identified that, and then we raise it, or if a child or an adult has raised the safeguarding, we follow the procedure in terms of that. It may well be that a safeguarding where somebody has got the capacity, it can take a route of the criminal inquiry rather than the safeguarding itself. I think that's very crucial that we clarify those things and make sure that people understand. Otherwise, if we are to question the children, we are basically jeopardizing the evidences or interfering with the evidences of the safeguarding concern or child protection.
And I think you made a very valid point there. And you'll notice when you get your new policy, in the declaration where you do a report, it's very basic stuff about time of the incident, where it occurred, very light information. It's not for us in any circumstances at all to investigate, to go through things in grave detail. That is not our role. That is not what we are supposed to do. Now I see quite a few hands have come up now. We have Marcus, I think it was. And then
Yes.
I see Richard and Eloise. Yeah, Marcus. Yes.
Yes, I was following the statement that you just mentioned of DBS check, and where it says all individuals who are in contact with children or adults at risk should be DBS checked. I wanted to understand where contact begins. What do you mean? Where does it begin? Where does it end? Because contact is a bit broad for me. There's contact as in working with that particular individual. And for instance, there's contact when we are meeting together in the church fellowship, in the church building. So which contact are we referring to here?
Both. In certain aspects, because if you were in a leadership position, there's not many offices I can think of. Treasurer may. Okay, yeah. What I'm saying, most leaders are going to be having to deal with people. And when you're dealing with people and you're an officer of the church, it's important you are following certain guidelines and practices. And that's why most people have to have this training and have to have DBS. It's for that reason.
Yeah. My understanding of it is if you are like a Sabbath school leader, you're leading a group of children, and you know, like you've got your kindergarten group and you've got your different groups in Sabbath school, you're leading in the children, or you're leading with your pathfinders or your adventurers. If you're in direct contact, leading children, working with children, you need. But in this, like you said, if it's a potluck, you have got children, but they're with their families or with their parents, they're with their guardians. So we're not talking about you, we're talking about people who are going to be with children, working with children in some capacity.
And the adults, because remember, it's both, really. You know, it's when you're doing something in capacity. Elder Richard, I saw your hand up.
Yes, Pastor. Yeah, thank you very much for the training. And I think what I would like to comment is that all the eldership team and the deaconate have to be, have to attend this kind of training, because they are actually the first port of leadership in a church. And if they don't know about safeguarding, then we have a problem in the church. So I would actually recommend to say that all elders and all deacons, especially when we have the deaconate training and the eldership trainings, I think this has to be part of the, training within those areas, so that everyone of the leadership of the team of the church is actually aware, and it's easier from the elders and the deacons to actually be able to disseminate this information within the church, because they are the leadership team in the church.
Yeah, and that is so correct. Dawn?
Pastor.
Oh, sorry, who was that?
Oh no, it's Peggy. It's Peggy.
Becky,
I was going
yes,
to give
sorry,
you the
Becky,
order.
yes.
I was going to
Please,
give you the
you
order.
could, please, yes, because it's hard for me to see it. Please.
Yeah,
go on.
so it's Osvaldo was first, then Elrose, then Kwaku, then Don.
Okay, so we'll start with the first one. Is it Osvaldo, you said?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, that's right.
Thank you, Elder Becky. Osvaldo?
Hello.
Yes, hi. Can we see
Yes.
you? Can we see you?
Yeah, sure. Just 1 second, please.
Yeah, thank you. Yes.
Can you see me now?
Yes, I can. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I'm an elder or in a church, and I already work with children in the family or families, and my DBS, it is online. Do I have to apply again?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. If you have the is it the automatic renewal thing? Yes, you have that.
Update
Yeah.
service.
Yes, update service. You can let us know that and give us the number. What we do need to ascertain though is the DBS. What we do is enhance. Not all work ones are. So, but that could easily be sorted. That could easily be sorted. But yes, it is possible. The answer is it is possible to, through your DBS clerk, pass that, be on the update service, and the BUC handle that, and we can look into that. And I would ask that, I would actually approach them as you have the training, because that is possible. But it's whether they are enhanced DBSs, but we can still do that if that's not the case. So that's not a problem.
All right. Okay. I can provide my certificate and the certificate of training every year. I have to do level 1 and level 2. So if that's the case, I can provide that.
That is there. But the main thing is that we still do the church. We still have the church auspices. But if you are on the update service, yes, it is possible to transpose some of the information. Yes, definitely. Okay.
Okay.
Sister
Thank you.
Elrose. Sorry, who was the next one, Becky? Sorry.
Elrose.
Yeah, Sister
Yeah,
Elrose.
I just wanted to follow up with a comment I made in the chat, which I'm saying, those persons who are like the heads of departments and stuff like that, they need to have a clear understanding.
Oh yeah, I agree.
And somebody else, alluded to that, because overzealous members think we're doing the right thing and stuff like that can in fact, like somebody said before, jeopardize situations. And sometimes they don't come through the proper channels, so they'll not come through the safeguarding person but go straight to the pastor. So it's about understanding, and hopefully the new manual pastor will address that. Hopefully the new manual will address that. Yeah. Thank you.
Then next is Kwaku and then Don.
Okay. What I can't. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Kwaku, yes.
We can't hear you.
Can't hear you. Oh yeah. Oh no! Wait a minute. There was a buzzing, and then I don't think your volume.
There's a problem with the volume. You've spoken before. No, we're still not hearing.
No.
We could probably come back to you at a later date.
Is it better?
Oh
Hey,
yes.
That's it.
One more. Cancel. Is it better?
I can hear.
Can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, can hear you now. Thank you.
Can you hear me now? Is it better?
Yes, can hear you now. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, thank you. Well, yes. In similar to one of the elders, some of us have been in safeguarding for 22 years. So I work as a child protection conference chair and independent reviewing officer. I've been with children's services for 22 years. What we do in our churches, and I appreciate the training because it's important for everybody. I think that we have to clarify, as you said, that every responsible person should go through the training and have their DBS checked because positions change. Every year we elect new officers and then we have to go through the full cycle again with the full understanding. So it is safe to make sure that everybody in the church board goes through that training because you have different times when different people handle vulnerable adults or children. So then it begs the question that at least everybody should go through that basic understanding and training. Yes, there are a lot of members who are fortunately or unfortunately within the care sector. So they are nurses or they are childcare providers who have enhanced DBS, which are updated lifestyles. So we gather all that information, we keep their records, and that we make them sign self-declaration forms. Actually, I encourage people to do that every year rather than wait for 3 years because there might be occurrences, situations. Not every situation is actually reported because the police don't have a system where they update churches about incidents that's happened within the communities. And if the person does not voluntarily share that information, you will not know. As somebody also said, people move churches. When they know that they have done something wrong, then they can't bear the shame, they move churches. So for us, and what I've been saying to my church is that every year we're going to bring a self-declaration form where you declare that you've not had any safeguarding issue, so that we are all protected. Because one DBS that lasts for 3 years, for me, it's a long time. Because I would say safeguarding issues happen on a daily basis. That is just our advice.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
No, that is really good what you said, Kadu. And I know you perhaps can't see it all, but in the actual new document, and this is the first time we've done it in such a detailed way, there is a full questionnaire, page 42, right through to page 44, Appendix 3, self-declaration form. That again will be put on the website. And that is something we want basically, as you were doing it the correct way, that should be done, and ideally on a yearly basis. It has to be done. And now this is now in the policy, so it's something that you've got your own. I know, but have a look at this because it's very detailed. It's good. It's very good. And it's important that we now do that. And maybe now more than ever before, we need to get this vigilant. There is a case, unfortunately, come up, which will become public soon, and it's in our sister conference in the SEC. And it's highlighted a lot of things. Charity Commission is involved. A lot of things have been highlighted. And I think now we just need to get more vigilant on these things, because it could come to our door, and we just need to make sure we are okay. But I think we're in the right direction. We've just got to be vigilant and do things correctly. But I'm pleased you brought up that, because that self-declaration is now here. So everyone can do that, and the proper principles can now be followed. Elder Becky, who was next?
There was Dawn, but the hand has disappeared. I don't know if
Oh, I'm here. I'm here still. And it's just the elder that's just spoken just before was saying exactly what my thoughts were with the 3-year DBS, which is quite a long time, and things do happen or not happen. So the self-declaration is an excellent way, I think. But the only thing is with that is I'm just thinking, exploring ideas in terms of the GP. They are, you know, in terms of information, storing that information, how is that stored within the church? So I'm just looking for ideas of where you store.
But some of that information will be given.
Are you going to cover that?
And even at a conference level now, we have got a company working with us on some stuff of storage and how we do it, how long things can be kept for, what to get rid of after a certain time, and all that. And that advice for the DBS will be rolled out to the churches as well.
Yeah, so that was one of the things around the storage, and earlier on in there was a comment made about visitors' books, and again that's the same issue, isn't it, about storage of those and how we do that within the church. And I totally agree with all leaders doing the safeguarding training and having awareness of that, and it's part of our role as the safeguarding leads to raise awareness, like you've said. So yeah, I just wanted to emphasize that.
Yeah.
And I agree in terms of a lot of the training that we've done today is emphasis around children, but we can't leave sight the adults at risk out there as well, because many of the church members do visit adults as well. So it's about the procedures that we take, you know, how to safeguard, as well as ourselves as well, going on visits, you know, because there's disclosures that are made and allegations that can be made. So I'm hoping that might be covered, like to go in pairs, or, you know, if you've got a female, you know, things like that, that needs to be looked at.
Yeah, all of that.
Yeah.
You're correct. You're totally correct. Yes, Becky, who was next?
We've got Dorel. That's the last hand.
Thank you. Just a remark on the volunteers. Of course, we know we are volunteers and it's all free to do the DBSs. I do as many as I can. All the officers, all the active members, I go through them and I check them every 2 years, every year, depending on basically how often you're able to do that. What I'm saying is, you cannot use it, of course, in a workplace because it's volunteer. In a workplace, if you get paid for it, you cannot use it. So that is the criteria of a volunteer DBS, just to clarify that. Also, I also go through, sometimes departments ask for helpers. Yeah, so you're talking about officers, aren't you? Now, and this is what I've got to, so I basically put in the bulletin officers and any helpers in each department who are adults helping with pathfinders, helping, you know, just even cooking, you know, they're involved with children. So it's not going to be just the officers, and that's to clarify that. And it's everybody. I really do think as much people as you can do, it's better. And then you've got them on the system. Now I've been doing it for nearly 4 or 5 years, and all I'm doing is checking now. And people come in and out of office, and when they come into office, then I check them. And of course, as well as checking them every year if they have the office more than, of course, a year or 2 or 3 or 5 years. So that's what we do at Camp Hill.
Very good, very good, Dewan. Yes, sorry, we did say earlier on the importance as well, because we have a lot of volunteers in the community working with certain food and different things. They need to have the checks and balances as well. So I'm glad you reiterated that again, because I think that is important.
So next we've got Dawn, Pastor.
Sorry, it's just a really, really quick question. Just some clarification around, you said around the, you know, some members may have online a lot of us do work in health, etc., where it's updated really, but then in the next breath they're not transferable because it's in a different setting. So it's just clarification around that, and the DBS that that the church does is actually free. So is it that we're saying actually if you're doing it online but it's for a different setting, that's fine or not?
Just to clarify, so there's no understanding, we have to have the church DBS, but sometimes people are on the update service and it can be for multiple things. So what we do, the thing is, our DBS is enhanced. Not all DBSs people have are, so that just need to be checked. That aspect only, we won't know that till you've come forward. What I'm saying for the BUC, it is possible, and the NEC, we can make those checks and then we'll re-enhance it and redo it for the church one. That's how we do it. So that can be done. It's just a simpler process, that's all, but it's still a DBS check. But you find out that once you go to your DBS person, whoever that is in your church, that they will liaise with the conference and sort that. So,
It's me. I just needed that clarification, really. But thank you. You've just given it.
We don't have any more hands, Pastor, but I'll just comment maybe on that. So, because the church is a charity, as I think Sister Doral said, people can register on the annual update and it will be free. So I think that probably in my mind that's more straightforward and easier that way.
And of course, this doesn't cost the church anything, by the way, members. It is organised, like you say, it's a charity. The question is, does the BUC act as an umbrella company? Yes, it does. The answer is yes, it is an umbrella company.
That's in the chat.
That was in the chat, so I'm just answering that. We're now 2:13, so what we're going to do, we're going to wrap up things now on there. If you could go back to the PowerPoint, the other one. So we'll just quickly just close this off now so we can, because I appreciate it's getting later.
We'll move on. Okay, so we're looking at the responsible person, and it's important for everyone to be clear as to what their role is. And on page 417, it says the head of every department, as Pastor's already said, is a responsible person. Often the first point of contact for any church member with concerns. And children will tend to go to that person because if they're the leader of their Sabbath school or the leader of their Pathfinder group, that will be the person they would naturally go to if they have a problem. They will keep accurate records of disclosure conversations. They ensure their team complete all their DBS checks. They support their team with fulfilling their roles and safeguarding responsibilities, making things clear for them. They also maintain safe working practices. And there's a question here. The question is, what would you do if you observed that one of your team was not following best practice procedures? What would you do? The fact is, if you as a leader for your department are taking the time to go through the policy and making sure everyone's clear as to their role, then hopefully people won't be in a position where they're not following. But ultimately, there's a lot of guidance in the policy as to what is acceptable and unacceptable behavior. And we're talking about things like ringing. Say if you are a youth leader, we're saying that as a youth leader, you should not be meeting, for example, one of your young people alone, meeting up with them outside of church on their own, just the two of you. That is not, for whatever the discussion may be, that is not a procedure you should be encouraging. You should not be encouraging people to be phoning somebody up at late hours, having conversations. So these are things that are not encouraged, and the policy does go into those sorts of detail. Sometimes just people need to be refreshed with a course, but if there's things that you see that are concerning you, you see then you need to report it to your safeguarding lead, is the main thing you should be bearing in mind. Okay.
And it's also about making people aware as well. You know, in the new policy, we have some very good pages on page 48, 49, Appendix 9, Appendix 8, which gives you a little example of how you can put the name of the people who are in charge, your pastor, designated safeguarding lead, responsible person, children's social care, and some key contact numbers. So what I like about the way the new policy is set out now, it's actually giving you some examples, leaflets that you can use and actually put up in your church. But so long as people are aware, but as Delabon says, the person who's running the group is sometimes the most natural person. So reporting abuse and neglect, and we'll just bring them all up, Delabon, to speed now. You know, if hearing a child or adult saying that they are being abused or describing the situation you recognize as abusive, we need to say something. Recognizing the signs, we've already looked at some of the indicators of abuse, observing behaviors in a child, and being told by someone about the abuse of another person or their concerns of that person. And sometimes with these issues, like I think somebody just illustrated before, sometimes we make a decision whether they are severe enough, and oftentimes things have to go direct to the local authorities because it's not something we can do that. But once we see the signs, we have to decide on the next steps. You know, that's what we're saying there. And we're going to look at now how to respond to abuse.
So you'll find this in our current policy on page 37 and page 51. This is a very important, because once you have somebody then, for argument's sake, they've come to you and they say to you, I have been abused. Once they say that, you then need to go through these 7 important steps. And it's important that you make sure you listen very well, because after you've listened, you then need to go and actually write a report, fill in a report form. So you have to listen and accept what the person is telling you. It's very important that you make the person who is divulging this information feel at ease. They may be crying, they may be in a real state. You have to reassure them that it's okay, they are safe, and you are going to be listening. You're not going to be judging them, but you're going to be listening. One important thing to say is that you can't promise them confidentiality because of the fact they could be have been sexually abused, they could be underage. So you cannot say to them, it's okay, it's our secret, I won't tell anybody. But you have to reassure them to let them know that they are safe and they've done the right thing. Never blame them, even if they have broken a rule or gone against good judgment. You've got to remember that the perpetrators will sometimes make them feel guilty and make them feel it's their fault, but it's never their fault. So again, just try to give them that reassurance. The next point here, never push for information, go at their speed. And the fact is, don't try to put words into the person's mouth. So did they do this to you? That is not what you should be doing. You really need to be asking more open questions in the way of to be getting the factual information as to when and how this.
I like what it says in the Appendix 14 in the new policy now, page 63, and it's looking at responding to abuse. And one of the questions it says about that is you can record observable things, but not your interpretations or assumptions. Keep it factual. So you might record that X was crying continually throughout the conversation. However, you should avoid writing about emotion state, such as X was very distressed throughout the conversation, as you may not know what distress looks like for X. Your observations may be shared with the person making the disclosure, so you should be able to justify the reasoning for making any personal commentary. And what this good sheet does, again, this is the fact sheet we will put up, it gives you the step-by-step guide of what you can do in a practical way. And this, by the way, is not investigation. It's a very, very minimal approach, but it's the principles to follow, and they follow correctly. The other thing I will point out, which is a big change to the policy, we used to say things had to be reported in 48 hours. It now clearly says here, point 2, write up your notes as soon as possible, and it has to be reported within 24 hours. So this is very important to note that. But you will get this fact sheet that will be in your policy on page 63 of the new policy, which you'll be getting hopefully before the end of the week.
Again, reassure them, let them know they did the right thing, and clarify what will happen next. So you'll just have to say to them, you know, I just need to make a few points, write the few points down, and then I will be passing this information on. And just the fact is that they will be safe. That's the important thing. You have to let them know that they will be safe. And then, of course, 7, which is the important key thing. They've got to, you have to do this as soon as you can. Record all that you've heard and done. And there is the sheet that goes through, and it's got the name. No, the sheet that it's got it's an actual sheet of the policy. Yeah. And it's just got the your name, the child's name, the gender, the time, and it's just got the box of what exactly was shared with you. So it's about being factual, like we've said before, and clarifying with the child or the person what would happen next. And it's about don't rate, you know, if they're sharing something, you know, you can't be judgmental. You know, raising your eyebrows, shaking your head. Don't forget, this is a traumatic experience they're sharing with you. So don't try to be, you know, not show any expression on your face, because you don't want to make them feel that they've done the wrong thing. And that, you know, sometimes they'll feel dirtier, or they'll hate themselves for what's happened to them. So you don't want to show any sort of shock on your face in any way, or with your voice or your tone, to make them feel awful. Okay. So what we're going to do now, you didn't want to do that one, no? We're going past that one. We're just going to move past this one for one moment. This is, you will find this again in the page 46 of the page 46 and 58. But what is different in the new policy, they are, like you said, it was 48 hours. It's now changed
24 hours.
24 hours that you have to have got that report written and handed in to the appropriate person.
So and if it's an immediate risk, it has to be reported to the services straight away.
Do you want to just go through that? Or do
we can just summarize this. I mean, it's quite clear on the screen how to respond. Do not delay. So if it's an emergency, you've got to contact either the police or social instantly. You know that has to go. If not, discuss your concerns with the responsible person, or past a rapid preliminary evaluation can happen. So if you still have concerns, safeguarding person makes a referral, maybe to the social services. Relevant support is identified or no longer has a concern, continue could be alert. So it's giving you the steps, which way to follow. And whichever one you follow, if you go to referral stage, that then is followed up with advice given and a record as you know, statutory services get involved. Sometimes what we call care agreements have to be put in place. Different things happen, but it's about following the steps. What I do like about the way these new forms are in, I'm just glancing them as I'm talking to you. These are very clear, so it's very easy for you to follow through. As you see these pages, you can go through very clearly, and it's giving you step by step and some information sheets with them. So this is very, very easy to work through. And this will be a good guidance and something as safeguarding leads with your church boards. As you point out the policy, you can be showing them this. This is something that the officers can understand. So it's something anybody could follow. And it's about making your officers aware, you know, of the steps. Yeah.
One thing I will say, I think we have said it before, but just to clarify, once you've spoken with that individual, you are just collecting the factual points as to exactly what's happened. One thing you are not there to do is to investigate and go and start questioning people to find out who did what, why they did what. That's not your job. Your job is just to collect the information and to pass that information on. Because at the end of the day, with you going around and carrying out your own investigation, can actually cause more harm to the actual body, to the person who's been abused. They can actually threaten more violence upon that person and traumatize them. They could also affect the investigation, because if it has to be passed on to the police, you don't know if evidence could be destroyed because of the fact that you've now alerted the perpetrator to the fact that the victim is actually spoken up. So it's very, very important that nothing is shared with anybody other than the pastor and the safeguarding lead or the police. Otherwise, you could jeopardize the investigation that might need to take place. Sorry, let me just quickly go. That's just a quick slide, just letting you
Did somebody make a comment? Sorry, I missed that. I heard something. Maybe somebody's background. Okay. Okay. Right. So this is the impact of abuse. Yeah. And you see, I was having this discussion with someone the other day. You may have been even involved with a situation where somebody's upset, but you can't judge how that person's feeling. You know, and the impact of a traumatic event can have an effect on you. And these are some of the things. It can cause fear, it can cause shame, it can cause, you know, sleepless nights, a lot of stress. All of these feelings and these emotions can live on even years after an incident has happened. It doesn't just always, it's not, and sometimes with what we call delayed reaction. So something can happen to somebody. It may be ages when this reaction happens. So we do not know what our impacts are. All as we can sometimes do as a church is offer prayer and support, and to try and help people, even if it's getting some help outside. Let us understand, as much as we like to, the church is not here. We cannot deal with every situation. That's not what we're here for. But what we can do is pray for some people, help them to see the importance sometimes of getting some counseling, of getting some support. And there were always places out there which supply support for specific incidences. And that's why that's the best we can do. It's not for us to say, well, the church has got to solve this problem for me, because the church can't. You know, that's not what we're here for. And I think it's getting that understanding, really. Yeah.
Oops. Okay. So just want to highlight this study that was carried out in 1919. It was the ACEs study, which stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. And basically what this study did was actually look at 10 specific areas. We've got physical abuse, emotional, sexual abuse, mental illness, domestic abuse, substance abuse, incarcerated relative, divorce, physical neglect, and emotional neglect. And what they found was that if somebody had experienced 6 or more of these points there on the left, they were 20 years. The idea is they died 20 years earlier than their counterparts. So if they had experienced 6 or more adverse childhood experience, it had a knock-on effect. They found that children who had gone through some of these issues that we've just highlighted there sometimes had disrupted neurodevelopment. In other words, their brains didn't quite develop as other children's brains developed. We talked about significant harm. The fact is they weren't making the same progress as other children of similar ages. This went on to affect the way that they socialized, the way that they developed their language skills. Everything was delayed and not as developed as what it should be. Those children then growing up into adults started then to adopt what we call here risk behaviors. You know, they would be getting caught up with perhaps experimenting with drugs, getting perhaps caught up with some unsavory characters and perhaps experimenting sexually, but risky behaviors, because you know their frontal lobes probably have even damaged, so they're not able to rationalize in the same way that perhaps their peers who hadn't experienced some of those abuses when they were growing up. And there we have it: social problems, disease, disability, and then of course an early death. And it says 20 years earlier than others.
Which is really sad. And I think so when we look at this, it helps me to realize sometimes we do have a lot of issues to deal with, and we have to be conscious of the fact that all people, even when they come into faith, there are some traumatic experiences, and that's why counseling is so important. It's not enough to say to somebody, I'm just going to pray for you. Prayer is important and we need to do that. But that isn't, sometimes people do need some real help. They've got some really emotional struggles, and we have to help them. Part of their healing process, God is I always say this, God is interested to heal us mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And it's all of those acts together. And that's where, you know, as a church, through the grace of God, God can give us wisdom to how to approach, and he could also help us to help people as well to find that peace. And that is that's really what the gospel is about, you know, in essence. And sometimes we do miss that, but it's very important that we do that.
So this is what this study said. It said it shifted the focus from what's wrong with you to what happened to you.
Yeah.
Because of what's happened, that's unfortunately why they behave the way they do, because of the fact that their brain didn't get developed in the right way as it should have done. So it's, as it were, rewired, and then they experience all these other issues.
Okay, so just to summarize now, the 4 R's. What are we supposed to do? Recognize what abuse is, and that you need to act to protect, and all of us are responsible. Remember that. Respond, listen to the individual's concerns and don't pass judgment, but listen and respond. Record, make a note of all that was said and done. And the final one is report. Pass the concerns on to the pastor or the DDS person, the designated safeguarding lead, I should say.
I don't know if you're going
to do that. I've seen 1 or 2 have had to go, or had to just say they've got to leave. So your test will be sent to you.
Do you want to do that?
There was a scenario. I am not inclined at this moment.
Sorry, I'm still not sure about that.
I'm not inclined at this moment to split you up into breakout rooms at this late stage. The scenario idea is to try and help us just reinforce what we've done. So how long do you think this will take then? It's not free yet, it's getting on for free, but we could end up going past free, couldn't we, with it? Yeah, do you think?
I'll leave it you to make the final
right
call on that. That's where we are with the slides.
Would you guys like to just do 1 scenario just to get an example so we could have a little discussion? How do you feel? Or are you so tired now? You've been feeling.
Don't mind.
Eh?
Don't mind.
You don't mind?
Oh, good.
Okay. All right. Let us. This will be the close. Let's just do 1 scenario.
Yeah, we can do 1.
Let's just do 1, and we'll just do it collectively, so it's nice and easy, and then just slightly work through.
Okay.
So bring up your.
Okay, so we'll just pick 1.
Yeah, just pick 1.
We had 4, but
yeah, we're just going to pick 1. We're going to put you into groups, but we'll pick 1.
He's a young adult, 20 years.
So, okay, I'll just read
this is
out.
a nice, easy one anyway. Yeah.
There's 4 scenarios, but we'll just pick this one then. Okay, so Julie is a young adult, age 20. She has been living alone for the past 6 months, following the tragic death of her parents, who passed away recently. In fact, you know what? I did want to do the other one, and I'll tell you why. Sorry, I'm going to move.
Yeah, because I think some might have done. I'm sure we've done this with somebody before.
I was thinking about doing the one about Where's it gone? Sarah, where's that gone? Okay, there's a problem. Hold on a minute. Where's the other one gone? Where's Sarah? All right, should we just leave it then?
Yeah.
I was going to try to do
Just
the other
leave it
one.
now, but next time we can do
Sorry,
something, yeah.
I was going to look for the other one.
Yeah,
All
let's
right,
leave
we'll
it,
have
let's
this.
leave it. Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, she's a young adult, age 20. She's been living alone. Her parents have just recently passed away. She has learning difficulties and a community support officer visits on a regular basis. Her neighbour, who lives across the road, comes over 2 to 3 times a week, and he offers to cut the lawn, and he does odd jobs to help out. And she has, I think, appreciated that, and she has bought him a cup of tea. On this particular occasion, she found him in the shed reading a magazine, and he invited her in and showed her the pictures, which were of naked women. And Julie told him she didn't like the pictures and didn't want to look at them. But he just laughed it off and made a joke about her looking like one of them. He then touched her bottom and said he had to go. And Julie was left very upset and confused, and is going to tell her support worker when they next visit. So the question is that I want to ask you is 3 questions. We've just read the scenario. What abuse do you think is taking place? What are your initial thoughts or concerns, and what actions would you take based on that scenario?
I think it's sexual abuse.
Okay, Ruth says sexual abuse.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Does everyone agree with that? Does everyone agree it's sexual abuse?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What are your initial concerns when you hear this scenario? What are some things you're concerned about when you before we say about
Vulnerability.
Sorry,
No, I was saying her vulnerability.
did you say vulnerability?
Vulnerability.
Yes, I did.
Learning difficulties.
Learning difficulties. Being
Being a
alone.
support worker, taking advantage in his role.
And for me, it's the supervision, like how often she's been supervised for me, being that she have a disability, even though she's an adult. Like the amount of time she's getting.
She's quite isolated.
Yeah, isolated.
I'd also like to add on to the sexual abuse, it's psychological as well.
Exactly, emotional abuse, yeah.
Yeah. Can I say it brings on fear as well? Maybe fear of sharing what has happened to her.
Oh, sorry.
We've also got to remember, don't forget what you said in this scenario, the fact that she'd recently lost her parents. So she's grieving. She's still, was it 6? It said 6 months ago. Grief is something that everyone
Come here, little lamb. Come. Can you go back into that room, please?
Right.
Get out here on your own. Please go back in.
Everyone deals with death of a loved one differently. So it's not a set amount of time, and oh, that's okay, I'm sorted, I'm over it. So she still could be grieving. Because of the fact this person's come over, she may feel, oh, I've got somebody to talk to now. The social worker's coming over, but they're not there all the time, are they? And
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, carry on, sis.
It's an abuse of trust as well.
Yes.
Of course.
Yeah.
It's an abuse of trust, because here's this trusting young person who's in a very, very, very vulnerable state, grieving and having to deal with all this. So I do agree with the person who said psychological abuse. That's really just so.
Taking advantage of her.
Classic.
Yeah.
But I have a question or a concern. Is this case a real case, or we are just trying to? Because I'm looking at a 20-year-old living on his own after
Living
that
on her own.
experience.
It's just something for us to discuss.
Say about
Every-
experience though.
Put it this way: this scenario could be a real life scenario.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we just try to get to the bottom of this whole case, and let's see if we can understand what's happening here.
Just wanted to add that this is a classic case for grooming. She's got all the vulnerabilities. He's identified that she's by herself. She's grieving. She's got some additional needs. And he's gone around to help, very caring, filling a gap and then taking advantage. Classic case of grooming. Thank you.
I'm glad you brought that out. I was wondering if that was going to come out actually, because
Yeah.
that is crucial. That is crucial what you've just said there.
Any other comments before we go on to what action you would take? Any other comments about this particular situation here?
I think one comment I'll add, I think maybe what people might find frustrating, I think, with the services is that, rightly or not rightly, I don't know, but one of the things the services take into account is capacity. So they would assess people's capacity. I remember reading a case in the South. It was in the community where somebody was almost in a similar situation, but financially. And the services kept saying that person has been assessed to have capacity. And they ended up being murdered by the people who were getting too close to them. So it's one of those very challenging situations we have to be mindful about. That if we see something like that, I know we can think capacity, but it's good to report rather than just, and then people can, a wider decision could be taken.
Exactly.
Yes, yeah, thank you, Becky. That's a very good point you made there.
Would you say she's institutionally abused as well? Because it's more like is it the social workers or whoever, the company that's dealing with her, they're not seeing her regularly. And to her needs, she's alone now that because of that, this man is taking advantage of her. And
But I think work constraints do get that though. With work constraints, sometimes you just haven't got enough time to deal with the cases on your caseload. So, yeah.
But it is when a disadvantage to the 20-year-old girl.
Just to respond, my sister, I think again the challenge, being 20-year-old, there is nothing wrong living by yourself, but also having a learning disability. Again, people function very well, and they don't need any support. So I think it's that the whole system that we have to understand, the assessment processes, maybe the council has to make and things like that. But that being bereaved, 20-year-old, having learning disability does not automatically make that person require additional support.
Yeah. I think we have our brother here with his hand. Yes, brother.
I've had my hand up. I think from the scenario here, this person has got learning difficulties and not learning disabilities. So the difference in those two. And I wanted to say it wouldn't be an institutional safeguarding, because the institutional is an abuse that is kind of like institutional, like an organization doing that. In this case, it's not an organization. And from this scenario, it looks like this person is able to identify even that what this person is done is wrong. And then therefore you have to look at, yes, they have got care and support needs because they are probably having that. And but however, it comes to, as Elder Becky said, with the capacity, if this person has got capacity, they can raise the safeguarding issues to somebody else. But yeah, it wouldn't be an institutional, someone who's 20 years old and they can have learning disability or learning difficulties, they can actually live on their own, because the idea is to help people to be independent as possible and be supported where they need the support. So yeah, but it doesn't excuse, there are some concerns there in terms of this person taking advantage of this very individual who's probably by nature is a caring somebody. So is also having those conversations with the people when they live by themselves, to know when things like that happen to them, who do they contact? The police, the social support worker, or the social services. By the way, the support worker who will be visiting in there, they are the eyes and ears of the local authority. To report those issues, because the local authority will not be with that person 24 hours. So unless if maybe she has got a 24-hour care need. Thank you.
No, it's a good point.
Okay, so if I could ask the question now, what action would you take? So if you were a person, perhaps another neighbour that was a good neighbour, and you just happened to find out about this, what action would you take now you have all this information? Perhaps she has divulged to you this whole scenario now. What would you do? What's the next steps?
I'd probably try and gain her consent to, or get the details for her support worker. Because, you know, basically with the view to let the support worker know, because her next visit may be 2 weeks away, or 6 weeks away, or months away.
That's right.
So if you gain that details, you can actually say to the support worker, well, I think, you know, Jenny, you might want to come out and give her a visit because she's told me X, Y, Z. But gain Jenny's consent to speak about what she's told you.
Yeah, I think that's crucial what you just said there. Getting that
but
support.
what if that it's actually Julie in the scenario? What if Julie, sorry, I'm not in the video. What if Julie did not consent?
Well, it's highly unlikely, though, that she would not consent, because she's already told you she's going to tell her social worker, support worker. She's quite upset. So, well, if she didn't consent, you've got a mandatory responsibility anyway.
Yeah. That's the bottom line. The bottom line is to actually let somebody know what has happened.
Say in the scenario, when we read the scenario, without going back into the scenario, it did say that she was going to say something to her support
she did say she was going to say, yeah.
So I think the support work is key, but what else would you do?
Well, as a neighbor, what I would do is reassure that this incident is not really a fault of her own. Just reassure her for her to not be, because once she's grieving for her parents, so she feels maybe isolated, then this happened, and he compare her body as to what's in there, which she did not like. So maybe she'll have some form of emotional feelings towards that. So I will just reassure her that it's no fault of her own.
Yeah, I think that's important.
Pardon?
I said, I think that's important, what you're saying there.
Yeah, just to give her some reassurance that, and if there's anything she needs as a neighbor, I'm just putting myself in a next neighbor. I will make myself available, let her know when I'll be available. She can come over if she wants, just being a neighbor then. But if it was in a different setting, it would be, the point of contact would be the local authority then.
And they may even have to get the police. Somebody even said it there. Probably does need to get the police, but also she may have gone to that person because she was feeling down. Perhaps saw that neighbour as a father figure to her. But the abuse situation is actually a situation now, and it's becoming, as someone says, more of a sexual nature. You know, that is dangerous. So that reporting.
If you remember
definitely,
back,
So can I ask the question, please? The
Sorry?
neighbour being the can I ask a question? The neighbour being the perpetrator, should he not then be reported to the police, to the authorities? Yeah.
if you remember those
Yeah.
4 points
Yeah,
back
has to
when
be.
we earlier on in the training, we gave you those 4 points: reported abuse and neglect, and it's being told by somebody about the abuse of another person or their concerns for that person. That is a sexual assault. The fact of showing her the naked women,
the naked.
physically, that's a sexual assault. So that has to be reported to the police. You don't need to go any further. Like we said, you don't start going to the neighbor and said, why did you do that? That's make sure you report it to the police. Also, as we said earlier, you contact the support worker. But that is where, and of course, reassure her as best you can, because ultimately, as was said, he's grooming her. That's just the first step. He's going to be, it's obvious, I think we could see there, that he has more further intentions here. So she is very, very vulnerable.
Now, someone put in the chat, I like that. Julie needs to stay away from the person.
But
it's all of those things.
That's where she will need some extra support. So
yes, other Johan. Yes, and this will have to be the last point probably now. Actually, yes. You need to unmute, brother.
Okay, sorry. I was talking to myself. I was saying, I think it is also very important after receiving such a report that because this gardener could be going to other different people and preying on people like her, it's very important that it's reported, that obviously it probably can be checked into whether this person has got the DBS or to go into people's homes and supporting them. Because this is one of the things that the people do. They pray and try to get consent of the people before you know it, that abuse happens. So that is being proactive to help other people who might not be like Julie, who managed probably to fend this person away.
Yeah.
Very, very key point.
So
well
true.
done. Thank you.
Thank you for that point, brother. Right,
Okay,
so yeah,
do you want to go back to them or not?
just show the 318 number.
Okay, so
there is
just put that
an organization that the conference, the BUC are part of it. The conference is now part of it. I joined last year. We're just renewing our membership for another year. We're going to continue to, that's my advice anyway, to continue to have this. It's a body which we can go to if we need advice, because they have got a Christian ethos and they work with charities like ourselves. They base it on Proverbs 31. It is based on that 31:8. That's why it's called itself. But that's the number. That is also going to be in your booklets. We can ring that number and get advice. And even if you have to refer something direct to ourselves, we'll go as well. Just to confirm that we're giving the best advice. And they're not there to judge us. They're there to guide us and work with us. But it's good to have that source. There is some good resources on there as well that we can access when we need to. And that is the sort of body that we work with. And there were some other professional numbers. Again, these are all going to be listed in your books. 318 we mentioned is there, NSPCC, all of these things, our counseling numbers, all of these things are there. Yeah.
But I think the crucial thing is, as a church, we have a duty of care to make these numbers available, because sometimes some people are suffering in silence, but we have to make the numbers available. I think there's some.
There's actually a sheet, an appendix sheet here
that you can write the numbers
in.
Even on the back of ladies' toilets, even if you don't have your own building, you could have a little board that you can make up and have those numbers available so that people can contact these numbers, these charities, and get the support they need, because ultimately that's one thing as a church. We are supposed to have these numbers accessible to everybody. So it has to be visible within our churches. So please be aware of that. And lastly, that number is there.
The counselling number is there again, please make sure if you haven't got the council report, you should have. They've been sent out, but I know some things don't always get passed. So we can have a digital version or a physical version. Just email us at the conference and we will make sure you have that if you haven't got that. But it's very important to have that one. And then we will close off with, yeah, is that it then? Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, that's the last one. Yes, yes, yeah. So we will, we've come to the end because I have somewhere else I have to go as well now myself. So, but I do appreciate the time you have taken. And please look out for the policy. Initially, between today and tomorrow, you will get an email sent to your email address with the test paper. Please, please, please do that as quick as possible. Get it back to us within the 2 weeks at the very latest. If you do it this week, it'd be even better, to be honest with you. But go on.
Excuse me, Pastor.
Yes,
Sorry,
yes.
someone in the chat is saying that the discriminatory abuse is missed, but I don't think it's missed. I thought I saw it somewhere in the policy.
Oh, it's there. It's
I
there.
thought I see it there in the policy at the beginning of the thing. So yeah, just to highlight that comment.
Right, yeah, no,
Okay.
yeah, it is in there. Yeah, yeah.
If I could just also say regarding the test paper, when you get the test paper, you can literally go to the policy and cut and paste.
Oh, don't tell them that.
I'm going to make it easy.
No, no.
Just cut and paste some
You
of
can't
the,
do that.
some of the answers are right there in the policy. We've
No,
gone through
they're not.
everything you
You've gotta
need.
know the stuff.
The other thing I would say is that when you do that, just close the gap, because as you cut and paste it, it extends the box. Just close the box back so that we're not printing off at the conference office, 10 pages when you could have printed 4 pages, if you see my point. So just close up the gaps. And the other thing is, handwritten test papers cannot be marked. I'm sorry. If it's handwritten, it cannot be marked because handwriting is too, you can't fit.
You haven't got a
information
computer,
in.
get somebody, go to a library, get somebody to help you.
Somebody can help you if you need a computer. You can borrow, beg
tell
and steal
them,
a computer.
Because it's
no
very
handwritten
impossible
test
for those of us
papers.
having to try and mark them. I've had this experience before and it just cannot be done.
It's impossible to mark because you can't read people's.
When's the DBS? The DBS training is on the 22nd for an hour. I think it's going to be in the evening, so I think it's from 7 till 8, but I'll double check. The times will be publicized. Pastor Bram will get them out, but I know it's definitely happening on the 22nd. Trying to think what day that is now. I've got my diary in front of me. No,
Okay.
the 22nd of this month will be the DBS,
22nd
which is a Tuesday.
22nd is
A Thursday, yes. So I think it's going to be probably about 6 or 7 o'clock, but we'll double check the time and that will be sent out to you. And now I can see loads of hands going up. I'm just going to ask, one of you going to have to do a prayer. I hope you realize that. So go on. Who's?
Can I say, because of the DBS training is not until later down in this month, that means we can't apply for people's DBS until we've done the training.
No. Remember, there is a conference office here, so you need to talk to Yvonne or Pastor Emmanuel. Yeah,
because that would mean that people are working with the children without DBS.
Yes, and that shouldn't really be, because there should be clerks in your church already trained. But if not, if that is the case, you need to contact the conference. That's what I'm saying. Contact Yvonne Weeks at the conference office. She's the one who helps handle that. And she will help you get that sorted out, because it can be done. She's got ways of talking with people individually. But I was just telling you that's the official name for training. But a lot of people have already that training, to be fair. Dorel.
Just a quick question. Who do I contact for the DBS password, which hasn't been given to us yet?
Again, Yvonne Weeks. It's Pastor Emmanuel Brown, but Yvonne Weeks is the one that helps administer it. So she's the person to contact, and they can sort that out quite quickly for you.
Brilliant. Thank you. That's all
I know that's an important question. Dawn?
Sorry, yeah, can you just, the date you've given us, February 22nd, is that to do the test? Is that the date
It's
for the
the
test?
training. No, that's the day of the DB. So, because I know it always gets asked, I double check to make sure what
Another
date
another
that
training
is
day.
for the DBS clerks. For the DBS clerks need to be, if they haven't already got their authorization and they're not currently, they just come in, because we do have some just coming in. They
So
want,
this is
it's an hour's training. It's an hour's training,
so
isn't it?
this is specifically for the clerk,
Specifically
not
for the clerk, not for you.
right,
Don't worry.
okay.
Don't panic. Please don't
Oh,
panic.
okay. Great. I'm not the clerk. I'm not the DBS clerk.
No, no. We
That's
won't
I was
put
just
you through that. It's just some people.
wants to confirm. Yeah, who is it for? Thank you.
No worries. No
But I
worries.
think this test for this will be sent out, will it be emailed out?
It will be
won't it?
emailed out between tonight and tomorrow morning. You will get that. It's just that I have to go somewhere, so I may not be able to do it till later on, early hours of the morning. But it will be done. You'll all get it. If you haven't received it by the end of tomorrow, contact the conference and my secretary. It means your email address couldn't have been right, but we would have that from your registration. So you will definitely get that.
Oh, take your time and send it, Pastor. I've got loads to do.
I can imagine. I can imagine. I saw Elder Richard, Elder Becky. Would one of you like to close in prayer for us, please? Elder Becky.
That's okay. Let us pray.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dear loving Father, we thank you for this opportunity we've had to spend the day doing this very important training and supporting the church and making sure we have the right processes in place and we have the understanding of how we can keep your church safe. I pray, Father, that you help us to be diligent and to be zealous in doing the right thing so that, Lord, the world does not look at us as a church in a negative way. Help us to be very diligent, every one of us here, in training our members and brothers and sisters, and also to be aware in everything that we do, Father, so we can keep those who are vulnerable amongst us safe. Pray that you help us now as we part, keep us in your love safe, and allow us, Lord, to meet again in another training as soon as it comes. We pray through Jesus Christ, our Savior. Amen.
Amen.
And any problems, guys, please get in touch with us and we will try and assist you. And we are going to look at further training to develop some trainers as well as what we have already currently outside of what you locally do in your churches. We are looking to try and do something in the areas. And, you know, we'll be in touch on that as we go on throughout the year. But we will be running some more of this training. It will be live training, which I do prefer, in the areas on the Director's Day. So look out for the dates and invite people or let them know those who wasn't able to come. But thank you for your time today. And may God bless you. May God give you his wisdom. And just keep faithful in all things and do the best that we can.
Thank you.
Thank you.